Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, am I the jerk for telling my sister it's her own fault her family is a mess because she wanted to adopt? My sister, Lucy, who's 38, has always wanted to have a big family. She and her husband, Tom, who's 40, had their son, Logan, who's now 9, but due to complications, Lucy couldn't have any more kids. She was devastated. About 3 years ago, she and Tom decided to adopt. Tom never outright said that he didn't want to go through with it, but it was clear to see he didn't care one way or the other and just wanted Lucy to be happy. Logan said he didn't want to have a sibling. Lucy brushed over all these concerns with the "they'll get on board eventually" attitude. Long story short, they were eventually matched with a boy, Jack, who is now 11. Lucy said that they all bonded, but Jack had behavioral issues, and whenever I saw them, I picked up on the fact that over time, Tom seemed to be getting less and less keen, and many times when it was just adults, he commented on his worry that Jack had latent issues because of his traumatic past. Lucy adored Jack and rubbished those concerns. I brought up Tom's hesitation, but Lucy said it was just taking longer for him to bond. They officially adopted Jack about a year ago, and since then, things have fallen apart. Jack's behavior has either got a lot worse or Lucy wasn't speaking about it as much before, but it's clear Tom is at his wit's end. According to Lucy, he works late consistently, and whenever Jack has a tantrum, he helps Lucy calm him down and then takes Logan and leaves the house. Logan now hates Jack and won't play with him, which causes more issues, and he started to act out. He spent his last school holiday with my family and is set to spend Christmas with us again because even the family therapist says it's good for him to have some space. Having seen this all unfold has been heartbreaking. Tom and Logan look more miserable every time I see them, and though Lucy would never admit it, she is too. Whenever I speak to her, she talks about how hard it is, but always has Tom and Logan at fault. She's never taken any accountability for the fact that she didn't listen to anyone's concerns. She called me a couple of days ago to discuss plans for Christmas and when Tom would be dropping Logan off at my house. She started ranting again about how Tom has shut down at home with her and Jack and how she thinks he's going to leave. She was calling him every name in the book and then started saying she was disappointed that Logan doesn't love Jack and she can't believe she raised a bully. I lost it. I told her the real bully was her. She bullied her family into adoption as a form of wish fulfillment, and Tom shouldn't have indulged her, but most of the blame falls on her for destroying her family. She screamed and cried and eventually called me evil and hung up. My parents are now saying that I was a jerk for telling her that, even though it's what we all think. But I think she needed to hear it and stop blaming her own kid for being unhappy living in the chaos that she created. Edit. For everyone saying that I said or implied that Tom is blameless, I didn't. I said to Lucy that Tom shares the blame, but I do think most of it lies with her. Who I don't think has any blame, no matter how she tried to place it on him, is Logan. Not the jerk. But what kind of parent adopts a kid older than their own biological kid? I'm surprised the adoption agency didn't pick up on that during the interview. OP. Honestly, there's a lot that I'm surprised they didn't pick up on during the interview. You're the jerk. Adoption is a long process. If Tom didn't want to go through with it, he had plenty of opportunities to speak up and say no. If he was too cowardly to openly say so, there are plenty of ways he could have quietly torpedoed the adoption. You have to meet a lot of criteria to be assessed suitable. He could have messed it up. Lucy didn't force him into this. If Tom wasn't willing to refuse the adoption, that's on him. Tom made the choice to become Jack's parent, but now that it's difficult, he's leaving Lucy to deal with it on her own. Working late and then leaving the house after work because your kid has behavioral issues and you don't want to deal with them is being a crappy parent and a crappy spouse. And it's absolutely feeding into Jack and Logan's problems. Treating Jack like he's not part of the family is not going to help Jack or Logan. So yeah, Lucy was overly optimistic about Jack's behavioral problems, but she's by no means the first parent to be that way. She went into this thinking that she would be a part of a team, and now she's on her own. Tom is a jerk for agreeing to the adoption and then abandoning his post. And OP is the jerk for absolving Tom of his part in this, acting like difficult adopted kids don't also deserve homes, and for what he said to Lucy. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that if her service dog can't ignore kids, he isn't a real service dog? I have 2 kids who are 11 and 9. My sister-in-law has a service dog who's been with her for about 6 months now. He's 18 months old. It was my son's birthday party last weekend, which she was at, and obviously had a whole ton of kids running around in my house. My daughter also had 2 friends over, younger siblings of the boys, as well as her pets. All in all, there were 9 kids, 3 dogs, and a cat causing chaos. At one point, one of our rabbits escaped and was running around too. My sister-in-law's dog couldn't cope. He was so excited and wasn't paying any attention to her. My daughter and her friend said hi to him, but otherwise left him alone. He was losing his crap the whole time, and my sister-in-law had to leave. My son was a little upset, but overall didn't mind. Just asked that she could come over for a mini birthday. Yesterday was that mini birthday. It was much quieter, just the family, and the dog was still losing it. He was jumping around, and she wasn't able to control him. She had a flare-up, which he ignored. She then got frustrated and asked my kids to leave the room. They did, and he finally calmed down. They came back in, and he got excited again. The kids weren't comfortable, so they went to play, and we had a conversation. I basically said, if she can't control him, I don't want him in my house. She replied that he's a service dog and goes everywhere with her, so I'd essentially be banning her. I said that he was a crappy service dog as he ignored her flare-up and wouldn't even listen. She then blamed my kids, saying my daughter had got him excited last time, and now he thinks that kids mean playtime. I told her that if her service dog can't ignore kids while working, he's not really a service dog. She got upset and left, saying she was uncomfortable with me. Later on, my husband pulled me aside and asked me to apologize because I had hurt her feelings. I said I didn't think an apology would be worth it because I'm not sorry. I meant what I said. He told me he understood, but it's still a jerk move to not even try to apologize. She then texted me and said that he had a situation with a kid when he was in training, but she is paying out money to get him retrained. I don't know what the situation is, but I do feel bad. I think she was trying to use my kids to socialize him, and it hasn't worked, and I feel much worse. I haven't yet responded because I do still somewhat stand by what I said, but I also feel awful about making her feel so insecure. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You are absolutely right. It's not a service dog. They are extensively trained and extremely expensive. It sounds like she got a dog and someone to train it and is calling it a service dog. 18 months old sounds kinda young also. OP. Yeah, and to be honest, I'm not sure where she got him. She was talking about wanting one, and then like the following week he was in her house. That's not a legit service dog. It takes a while to apply for and be approved for a certified service dog. Then it needs to be sourced, have its temperament gauged, and have an opportunity to be matched with its new owner. Not to mention the cost for the dog and the intense training, or getting approved for a service dog provided by a nonprofit. Sounds like she just got a dog from a normal breeder. Am I the jerk for telling my sister we won't be coming to Thanksgiving since she can't get her kids' lice under control? I'm 27, female. My sister, who's 35, she has kids who are 12 and 10, and they have lice. She's been trying to get rid of lice for like a month, but they keep coming back. She's tried shampoo, special combs, everything short of cutting their hair, but for some reason, the lice just keep coming back. The holidays are starting to come up, and she still has yet to get it under control. I have extremely long hair that I spend a lot of time caring for, and I've been growing it out for many years now. Obviously, I don't want to deal with head lice, so I told my sister over the phone that I won't make it to Thanksgiving at her house this year. When pressed why, I said it's because of the lice infestation, to which she freaked out and called me a jerk, saying she's tried everything and that the family will be disappointed if me and my boyfriend don't show up. We had a long conversation where she told me that I was being selfish. Later on, different family members called to also tell me that I was being selfish and that if I wear my hair up, I should be fine. Doubtful. This is a situation where I'm okay being the jerk, but I'm not sure if I am or not. Edit. Not to be rude, but I don't need any more lice tips or treatments. Nope. Lice is a plague. I have a feeling she's only treating the heads of the kids and nothing else in the house if the lice are still there after a month of treatment. Has she put all the kids' stuffies into hefty bags and left in a cold spot for a month? Has she removed all the down-feathered products from the house and waited to purchase new ones until the lice were completely gone? Are there any pets, and have they been treated? Some specialty pillows even have to be bagged and stored because their fluff attracts the lice. Not the jerk. Lice is insanely expensive and frustrating to treat, especially if you have long hair. I had it 5 times as a kid because I was on a lot of traveling sports teams, and we as dumb kids shared hair products often. Every single time we had to treat it, it was insanely frustrating and painful for me. I can't believe this woman isn't more concerned about this issue. OP. I don't know what all she's done, but I doubt it's everything you're describing. And yeah, my hair is down to my knees. Getting it out would be an absolute nightmare for me. I just have that much hair. Not the jerk, but also cut the hair. A number 2 crew cut on the boy and a normal supermarket lice treatment will deal with that no problem. Update. So as it turns out, pretty much nobody knew how bad the infestation was or didn't know about it at all. A good number of relatives just thought the kids had like a small cold and figured they'd be fine. But when I dropped out, people thought that was weird because I love my sister and I always go to parties she hosts. That's when my mother explained that it's a really bad lice outbreak and that my sister was trying really hard to get it under control before Thanksgiving. That's when a bunch of other relatives started going, yeah, I think I'm gonna drop out too. And before long, it was pretty much just my parents, my sister, and a very small handful of other relatives who were still going. So my sister ended up canceling and apologizing to everyone. She even called me to tell me she was under a lot of stress and she was sorry about how she spoke to me, which was nice. I did send her some of the advice you guys sent. I can't really credit any of you, so if you were one of the thousands who suggested something, I guess feel a sense of achievement. She took the kids to a lice clinic and she's having the house fumigated since it's been going on for so long. They've been staying at a hotel for a few days now while they wait. I don't really know that much about the situation beyond that, but that's what she told me. Overall, it seems like nothing spread to anybody and she might be able to get it under control. Am I the jerk for asking my wife and daughter to leave the house if they don't want to reside with my son? My wife, Rachel, who's 35, and I, 35 male, have been married for many years now, and I also have a daughter, Leah, who's 14. I'm not proud to admit it, but I had another kid while I was married to Rachel through another relationship. That's Aiden, who's 12. I kept it a secret from them, and I paid child support to the mother. I was meeting absolutely all of their expenses. She herself had a good job anyway. She passed away recently, and Aiden was all alone. I did not want my son to suffer like that without any parents. The reason I did not reveal his identity to Rachel and Leah is that I did not want to cause a fight, but now I had no choice. I went through all the proper procedures to get custody of Aiden. I made him live in my house. My wife and Leah did not like it at all. They went absolutely ballistic when they learned about him, and Rachel screamed about how I shouldn't even dare to think of letting him take even a step inside. Leah was saying the same stuff, but I did not back down, and they eventually had to be fine with the decision. They've been absolutely livid about it, and Rachel has been demanding to get Aiden away from the house. I told her that I'm not going to do that and warned her against doing anything to him. Leah got mad and asked me whether I value someone who was born of a woman like that, and I lost my temper. I got up and asked them to get out of my house if they don't want to reside with Aiden. In the end, Rachel was crying and they're not talking to me now. Am I the jerk? Edit. No, I don't want Leah absent from my life. And Aiden is also my own son. I have the right to bring him to my house as his father. For those who are gleefully saying that they hope Rachel divorces me, I'd rather have Aiden in my house than to live with Rachel or Leah without him. I'm rich and I can make my own path and find another wife if I want to. Absolutely nothing justifies calling his mother the names that Leah did. Using that language absolutely blames him, his mother, and his ostracism. Also, yes, Rachel also talked about his mother this way, not just Leah. I forgot to mention that. And yes, it is my house. It's theirs as well, but not legally. I own it. Yes, I gave them time to process it. I did not bring Aiden in all of a sudden, just to clarify. You're the jerk. Give her a divorce and let her move on with this horrible part of her life. I don't think you know how badly you destroy people when you cheat on them. Some people are never able to recover from that. So just divorce her and let her go. Leave your wife and your daughter the house and go find an apartment for you, because kicking her out is ridiculous. She didn't do anything, you did. You're the jerk. What's more, she had zero time to prepare and no backward information. All of this is a shock to your wife. How you can even be so angry with her is beyond me. I'm sure that your affair partner had family and people this boy could live with. You are sabotaging your marriage and your whole life for a kid who you created out of wedlock. I would first look for other family members that can take him in, and if you have to find an apartment for you and him, then divorce your wife so she can move on from this and try to recover. He also fooled her into thinking he was a half-decent person. If she had known what garbage she was married to 12 years ago, she could have divorced him then and maybe built a nice life with someone who actually loves her. He stole a decade of her life because he didn't want to start a fight, which actually means he didn't want her to know what kind of a man she was married to. You're the jerk. The situation your family is in is your fault. You cheated on your wife, you kept it a secret, and now you sprung a secret like this on them with no warning. And now they have to live with a stranger and treat him like a son and a brother with zero adjustment time. Resentment and anger is to be expected. You need to give them time to get used to the situation. You stepped out on your marriage, and now you're putting your secret son at a higher priority than your wife and daughter. Father and husband of the year. You should have integrated your son into your family's life, not catapulted this huge curveball and said, if you don't like it, leave. And you know who your son is going to blame for the scorn he gets from his sister? You, the person who is to blame. Congrats on alienating your whole family. Not the jerk. As a rich man, you've got all kinds of options. If wife has a problem with you being there for your son, get rid of her. Let her find a broke, desperate guy. There's plenty of them out there. I regret having my son and wish I stayed child-free. Yes, I have a kid. No, I don't really post him. It's not a pick me thing or a I'm not like other moms thing. Aside from privacy reasons, I've been struggling with the fact that I'm even a mother at all. I was pretty child-free, but due to societal and mostly spousal pressure, I had a kid against my own wishes. It messed me up so bad mentally. Then my divorce happened, and then I became a single parent. I didn't fight for anything more than 50-50 custody. I didn't want more. A lot of crap happened that I wasn't prepared for, still not. It's a burden I don't wish on anyone. It feels like you're on a leash. You can only go as far as the leash allows. But when you're at the end, it retracts and it drags you back. One week I'm free and it feels like I'm getting my life together, and then the next I'm losing my mind. Toddlers are not easy. It's more exhausting than manual labor. You can call me a bad mother. In the grand scheme of things, I am. But what I don't do is show him my resentment. There are times I lose my temper and cry and hide away in another room. There are times I dread when my free week ends or look forward to the week of parenting to end. It sounds awful, I know. It's a slap in the face when people ask me about having more kids or that things don't last forever. Kids grow, yes, but it doesn't negate the struggles you're currently going through. When a kid that doesn't regulate their emotions well pushes the button of someone who also can't regulate their emotions, it's horrible. My life is also beyond kids. It's an entire universe. Friends, family, relationships, career, etc. is a part of it. So is my son. He's not my universe, but a part of it. So for society to reduce me to nothing more than a single mom is insulting. I don't know why I'm posting this honestly. It's not necessarily a cry for help, maybe a place to vent and get my feelings out. I love my son like a mother would instinctively, but sometimes I look at him and feel nothing. When he cries, I get mad more than I want to nurture him. I wanted to give my ex-husband more custody and find myself, but my family threatens to disown me. I'm afraid that my presence in his life does more harm than good. Being a parent is not easy or as enjoyable as people make it out to be. I love my kids, but I hate being a parent. Why not give up all the rights to the kid then? The dad wanted him, you didn't. He should be with the one who wants him, in my opinion. If he pressured you, he should have taken the kid after the divorce. Tell your family if they care so much, they should be watching over the kid themselves. I'm gonna get downvoted to heck for this, but the kid didn't choose to be born. He's going to sense your resentment whether you think he will or not. If you leave him with dad, he will have emotional difficulties because of it. If you don't, he's going to have emotional difficulties because of your resentment. Pressured or not, you had this kid, and his well-being is your responsibility. Grow up, get therapy. His dad is in the picture. You get breaks to work on yourself, so do it. Girlfriend got annoyed when I pointed out her hypocritical views on cheating. My girlfriend and I have been together for just under 3 years. One thing she really hates and has regularly got angry about is people who cheat in relationships, which I agree with. There's never an excuse for cheating, and we both seem to have the same values about that. One of my friends cheated on his partner last year. I didn't try to make excuses for him. I agreed with my girlfriend when she got annoyed and ranted about how wrong he was, and I did mention to him that he was out of order for doing it, and most of the friendship group agreed. My girlfriend went on a night out with some friends last weekend, and the next morning she was talking about it, and she mentioned one of her friends who was in a relationship was dancing with other guys, going up to random guys and having her arm around them, and she tried to kiss a couple of them. One rejected her, and another she only didn't kiss because another of the friends stopped her. My girlfriend was laughing when she was talking about it, and I just pointed out that her friend is actively trying to cheat on her boyfriend then. My girlfriend disagreed and said it wasn't like that, and she wasn't cheating, but I just pointed out that she's trying to kiss other men on nights out, so yeah, she's cheating. My girlfriend got annoyed and said I was wrong for talking like that about her friend, but I just said my girlfriend is being a bit of a hypocrite, considering her previous attitudes towards cheating and her reaction when it was one of her friends. She said I was being unfair to her for nothing, but I just pointed out she's making excuses for bad behavior when it comes to her friends. She just repeated that I was being out of line and too harsh towards her for no reason. How would you handle this? Also, her friend is not in an open relationship. First thing I would do is ask her if she was kissing other guys on her girls' night out, or if she would consider doing so in the future. She seems to think it's okay, so it's a legit question, and it would explain her defensiveness. I'm not saying it's breakup worthy, but if that's her attitude, it's worth a discussion on boundaries. Either your girlfriend actually only gets angry about guys who cheat, or she has a definition of cheating in which her line is drawn differently from yours. Feels like either of those is problematic for the future of this relationship. The fact that her girls' night out involves her friends flirting with, dancing with, and trying to kiss other men, and she literally considers this so normal that it's a conversational topic with you, kind of feels like it raises some obvious questions about her actions during the night. She's doing the same thing and thinks it's okay. This is why you don't date girls who do the whole night out thing. Let others call you insecure all they want to. I'd rather have a girlfriend who wants to kick back on the sofa and watch a movie with me than someone who wants to go out to clubs, drink, and meet other guys. Stop settling for these kinds of partners. The reason your girlfriend adamantly doesn't consider this behavior cheating is because she has done the exact same thing. The cognitive dissonance will never allow her to see this as cheating since she cannot see herself or admit to herself that she is a cheater despite being one herself. If she concedes that her friend is a cheater, then that would involve admitting to herself that she's a cheater as well, which she is internally denying. Girls just want to have fun. It was no big deal. Tell the boyfriend what happened, and your girlfriend's friend may very well tell the truth of what your own girlfriend has done. Just be ready to face it. Do nothing all night for a ton of overtime? Sure, why not? Backstory. I worked at the time in an oil change place. They had recently moved managers from salaried to hourly because some managers in different cities were just lying and not going to work while getting the same check every payday. And I warned them that if anything, my pay was going to go way up because I'm here a lot more than 40 hours a week. They were good with that, they said. Well, one night I get a call at 7 p.m., 2 hours after close, from one of my guys who was in the shop after hours without permission and crashed into a bay door, like a garage door. All auto shops have at least a few. He got fired. That's not malicious compliance at all, just a setup. So I came in and investigated. The most relevant fact here was that he bent the door so there was a maybe 4-inch by 4-inch gap. A house cat could have squeezed through easily. I called our door repair guys immediately. They said their folks were on an emergency after hours call already, to somewhere 5 hours away. They could be there in the morning. I said okay, since this wasn't a danger. The door was in place, not visible from the street. You'd have to be behind our building looking for this kind of thing to find it. Alarm still sets, motion detectors work. Anyone that broke in through this metal door with a 4-inch gap would have needed tools and was gonna get in even without the gap. We don't even keep more than $100 cash around, and anything expensive to steal was equipment bolted to the floor. Deal with it tomorrow, right? Obviously no. Called my boss to fill him in, and he said to call the door guys. I told him I did already and tried to explain their situation. He interrupted me and told me in super rude and loud words just to call them and not bother him again about it. Then texted me to rudely say that I better darn well stay there until they arrive and finish the repair. So since I was single, had no plans, and was now paid hourly, I clocked in. I decided this sounded like easy money. Pulled up 2 comfy office chairs to make a bed/couch, watched YouTube, and did assorted internet scrolling. Slept at normal times pretty comfortably all the way to 8 a.m. They showed up around 9 and fixed the problem pretty quickly. I was already on my regularly scheduled 8 to 5 shift that day, which I finished. So now let's do the math. That overnight waiting, 7 p.m. to 8 a.m., 13 hours, all at time and a half. So 22 hours at a time and a half equals 33 hours of pay for doing my normal shift plus internet scrolling and napping that was barely even an inconvenience. My boss sees it come payday and tries to give me a yelling over email for trying to rip off the company, CCing all the big bosses, HR, payroll, etc. I reply to all, explain the situation, and include the text screenshot. Suddenly, I'm not the one getting yelled at anymore, and I got every bit of that overtime pay. Yesterday, I cheated. I'm still processing this. For 9 years, I've been strictly monogamous. I haven't even entertained the thought of someone else. My barber has been trimming and shaping my beard since I started growing it. He knows me. He knows how I need it. His work on my beard has even won me awards at competitions. Yes, beard competitions are real. Because he's such a wizard at his craft, he's also very difficult to get an appointment with, and sometimes I have to wait a month before I can see him. I know I should be more proactive and plan my appointments way more ahead of time, but sometimes I just forget or I'm too busy to break away and see him. I flew to New York City Friday night because I had a ticket to a Broadway production yesterday afternoon. I've known about this trip for a month now, but didn't think about getting my beard trimmed before I left until Monday last week. Obviously, my barber is booked out until the first week of January, so I take the L and realize I'm heading to the city looking like a caveman. When I woke up yesterday morning, I took a look at my beard and started entertaining the idea of someone else. What's more New York than an old-fashioned barbershop trim? I say this to myself, and that's when I could feel myself slipping into a series of thoughts that I should not have allowed myself to think about. I open up my browser on my phone, incognito mode obviously, and I start searching for someone. Pages and pages of eager barbers just waiting to run their scissors through my beard. Then it happened. I stumbled across Eva. Eva has extremely high reviews. She's trained in the art of beard shaping. She has a warm smile that lured me in. I booked and I went to my appointment. Eva knew exactly what she was doing. Eva made me feel and look like $1,000,000. Afterwards, I walked away feeling horrible with what I had done, but I don't care. Plus, she lives in a different state from my barber, so they'll never even cross paths. I do plan on telling my barber next month when I see him. I hope he understands and we can work past this. Even if we do manage to work past this, I'll still always be thinking about Eva. My family forgot to invite me to my grandparents' funeral, but they are convinced that I was there. I'm in my 30s, female, and caused a major blow-up in my family, and now none of them are talking to me. For background, my hometown is tiny, 500 population, and when I went 2 hours away to the city, 15,000 population, for college, I loved it. I ended up staying after graduation, got married, and I'm happily here for a decade. I visit my hometown every few weeks or so, call and text my family nearly daily, and I thought we were all good. My family's pretty small, just my brother, mom, stepdad, dad, stepmom, and an aunt and uncle. Mom's siblings, never married, no kids. My mother's grandparents moved to my hometown when I was in high school and were just down the street from us. My family has always been pretty drama-free, aside from my parents' divorce when I was a kid, and we've been happy. The step-parents were blended in perfectly, and we share holidays and celebrations together. We're all super close and just the perfect little group. Ever since I moved away, the topic of when am I moving back is constant, and I've always laughed it off. My hometown has nothing. You have to drive 30 minutes for milk and bread, 60 to 90 minutes one-way commutes for work, and floods shut down the main road every Easter. I love the town, but I love it here more. I have parks, stores, community events, and a library. The city is great. My family grumbles that I need to move back, but I refuse. I've been trying to encourage them to come here, especially since it's not an hour drive to the nearest medical facility. Now to the meat and potatoes. Both my parents passed away recently. They were both old, and their health had been failing for a while, so it was only a matter of time. They both passed in their sleep months apart. Both were cremated and kept securely under the kitchen sink for safekeeping until lockdown blew over. That was 2021. Well, I just found out my family held a funeral for them and scattered the ashes in my uncle's maple grove over the summer. No one said a word to me about it. I visited numerous times before and after, and not one word. I only found out because my great uncle from California posted on Facebook a few weeks ago that he is entering hospice and was so thankful his health stayed strong enough for him to see his little sister, my grandma, to her final resting place. I was confused and called my mom. She was like, "Yeah, the funeral we had in July, remember?" Y'all, I visited them for the 4th of July. They did the funeral on the 8th. Not a word about it to me. They had planned this for months, long enough to arrange for my great uncle to be brought over from the other side of the country. Apparently, they talked about it all the time. Everyone's convinced I was at the funeral. They swear I was there. I can prove I wasn't because Google's got my location history. My hubby is baffled because he was supposedly there too, but he had to work every weekend in June and July. Time clock doesn't lie. My family straight up forgot about me. I'm hurt, I'm sad, and they're upset with me for lying. They think I'm causing drama over nothing. Nothing I can say will convince them that I wasn't there. My family is united in this. They've all put me on red until I admit that I'm wrong. They think I've gone nuts. Either there's a doppelganger of me attending events, or my family doesn't want to admit that they messed up. I'm not backing down. Thanksgiving is coming up, and my family's been vague posting on Facebook about forgetful kids and mental health. It's so weird, and I don't know if I'm in a bizarro world or what's going on. My mom's best friend reached out and said I should just admit I was wrong in apologizing, that I'm causing my mom so much unnecessary stress. I asked her if she's checked everyone's home for CO2. We checked our CO2 and our testers are running just fine. I've reached out to a few people in my hometown to check in on my folks, and they all say that they're fine. I even spoke with the local volunteer firefighter group to see if they could check for gas leaks. Not sure if they were able to. I don't know what to do. I've shown them the proof that I wasn't there, but they know I'm tech savvy and just assume that I photoshopped it. Hubby says we need a break, and we're going to be staying home this holiday season. Yeah, they know that they messed up big time and they don't want to admit it. But they created this narrative to make themselves look and feel better, and now they've pushed it so hard that friends in the community are in on it. They might even believe it themselves at this point. It can happen. I agree with your husband. Take a break and decide what's best for you going forward. Families can be real difficult, especially with self-created drama. OP. That's kind of our thoughts, that they forgot and don't want to lose face in the community, and now they've dug themselves in so deep they can't get out. If they truly do believe it, it scares me that they've all agreed to this delusion. I feel like I need more info, but not even sure what to ask. However, to me, it sounds intentional they didn't invite you, and we're maybe hoping this would make you want to move home again, so you don't forget any more family events. If anyone said something like, well, if you lived in town, you would have known, then that's the answer. It would also make me want to find out how everyone else was told about said funeral. Were they called, texted, emailed? Maybe if everyone else was invited in person, they did just forget to invite you. But even that would seem kind of like a stretch if you do go back and visit and call as much as you say. Update. Thanksgiving just happened. Hubby and I stayed home. We got a small turkey and made our own little Thanksgiving. It was nice. We ate around noon, then watched a movie, and sat outside with a bottle of wine to watch the sunset. We usually take the day before off, drive to my folks, stay the night, and help with Thanksgiving Day cooking. So it wasn't until Wednesday night that my mom broke the silence. Mom called and asked when I was showing up, and I told her we were staying home this year, but for them to have a happy Thanksgiving and to give the rest of the family my love. She was quiet for a long time after I said that, and I think she eventually mumbled an okay or something and hung up. It wasn't an angry hang up, just a hang up. On Thanksgiving Day, I sent a group Happy Thanksgiving gift to our family group chat. I received a few Happy Thanksgivings back. No one said anything else. There's been no posts on Facebook. My Karen wife is demanding I sell the business that I love. My wife, who's 35, and I, 42 male, have been together for 14 years. This year, after 9 years of university and residency, she is officially an MD, anesthesiology, which is why it took 9 years. I'm incredibly proud of her. Now, I'm a tuna fisherman and charter owner. I own 2 boats and licenses through my company. I bought the first license at 21, the second at 25. Both are now paid off. I make a very good living. I charge $2,000 for a day of tuna fishing per person, up to 5 clients per day from July 15th to November 15th, and I'm booked at least a year in advance. But the money, while obviously important, isn't the draw for me. This is truly my passion. It's the only job I've ever known, and I can't imagine my life without it. I left this year the first week of July, as I always do. But this year, my wife has started insisting that I start to think about selling the licenses and the boats, because she feels it's time to start a family, and that since she's a doctor, I should sell them to stay home, raise our kids, and be home all year. I told her in no uncertain terms that I love her. I want kids with her, but I am not now, or for the foreseeable future, selling my businesses, or giving up the business that I have loved since I first went tuna fishing with my father when I was 12. I would be miserable without it. Now I want to be clear. My wife has no power over my business. I got an ironclad prenup to protect my business and home and property before we got married. It doesn't protect our personal assets or accounts. She would be entitled to half of our savings, and it's not like my wife was hard done by. She didn't pay a penny for her education. I paid the bill to the tune of hundreds of thousands. I paid for our home, bought her a vehicle to travel to school with, so there's no financial mistreatment on my part. Her issue with my job is that I'm not home for 4 months a year. We live in Ontario, Canada, but my charter boats are on the southeastern shore of Nova Scotia, and that my job is dangerous. She knew both these things from our very first date. My wife is adamant that she wants this done, and it just isn't happening. She keeps saying how she'll be so busy as a doctor that she can't be home to raise the kids. But personally, I don't see how that's any different than my situation, aside from me actually having 8 months a year off. I'm not sure why she thinks that I should give up my dream job now that she has attained hers. Personally, I feel that she's ashamed to tell her new snooty work friends that I'm a fisherman, even though I make as much or more as they do, as this literally began as soon as she started her new job and started hanging around with a much higher class of people. A class of people that I'm not fond of, but I would never tell her who to have as friends. She denies this, but the way she suddenly altered her friend circle and started fighting with me about this as soon as she finished her residency and started her new job with her new friends tells me otherwise. She also has expressed interest in selling our property, 120 acres, to move to a condo in the city, and that's another area I just won't compromise. I did offer her that we could look at buying a condo and living there during winter, but I'm not selling my property. She also doesn't want to accept that. I'm willing to compromise, but this is my home and we can afford it. I'm not giving it up. When I'm not working, I'm hunting and fishing on this land. It's my favorite place in the world that isn't the Atlantic Ocean. I have no intention of retiring for at least another 25 years, and when I do, I plan to give the licenses and gear to my son from a previous relationship, and the reason I built this business to begin with. I never wanted my son to see me as a failure. He's 20 and is a mate on my second boat. My wife seems to think I'm a jerk because I want to be gone from her 4 months a year, and because with my investment portfolio and business worth multiple $1 million, I absolutely could retire and live well. I think she's the jerk because she seems to think that I should be miserable in order to make her happy. I'm honestly not sure my marriage can survive this because there's absolutely no chance that I'm selling my business or retiring. But am I wrong here? Am I the jerk? I literally spent a decade making her life as easy as I possibly could. I'm in no way saying med school is easy, but she finished with no debt or responsibilities outside of the home. Few med students can say that. I also feel there's been a big change in the way she looks at me and my profession ever since she became a doctor. The profession that paid for her to get to where she is today. I am who I am, a country boy who had a dream to make a living doing something he loved. I feel like she feels that having a fisherman husband is embarrassing now that she's a doctor. There's 3 things I want to be clear about before people go there. 1. Nobody is cheating or suspects the other is cheating. 2. Never has there been any expectation that I would retire young. I never suggested it, and she never brought it up until these past few months. And 3. We can afford whatever help we would need to help with our future kids for the months I'm gone. But she doesn't want her kids to be raised by nannies. So Reddit, am I the jerk? If my marriage falls apart, is this my fault? Because this is weighing extremely heavy on me right now, but I don't feel I'm in the wrong in any way. Edit. So I wrote my wife a long email. No, this is not how we generally communicate, but she's on call and staying at the hospital. She called me back quite upset, especially since I told her I felt she was ashamed of having a fisherman for a husband. After she stopped crying, she told me that this was absurd and definitely not the problem, and that while she hates me being gone for 4 months, that's not even why she's so upset. She can get through that part. She's worried about the danger associated with my job. My wife is risk averse. I've known that forever. I am quite the opposite. My dad raced dirt track, my mom skydived and wingsuited regularly, and I grew up on the water with multiple uncles who were lobster fishermen, snow crab fishermen, miners, and lumberjacks. My mom had 17 brothers and sisters, and yes, that's all one marriage. My grandmother birthed them all. I went back east every summer to fish. I love it. But she's not wrong that with that comes the danger that someday I just won't be gone for 4 months. I'll be gone for good. I have the best of gear. Our boats carry rescue capsules, and us captains look out for each other, but accidents do happen. I've seen tiny communities devastated, losing 5 young men to the sea. I've done search and rescue and pulled bodies from the water. She said she's always been scared, but it's gotten worse these last couple of years. and apparently her mom has been in her ear about it a lot. I love her mom, but she can definitely habitually press my wife on our future plans for family, probably causing her more stress than is fair. We're going to seek therapy as a couple, and for her personally, because she says she definitely doesn't want a divorce, and that she's never been ashamed of what I do and realizes what I've done for her. That's why she shot down the nanny suggestion, not because she was against it, but because she was irrationally trying to get me to bend to her out of fear. I also want her to get help with dealing with her mom from whatever therapist she chooses. She does want a place in the city, and I definitely understand that. She didn't seem to believe we could afford both. Downtown Toronto is expensive, and it's true she doesn't know my finances. Don't get me wrong, she realizes in rough estimates how much money the business makes, but my job also has major expenses. I assured her that between the two of us, we can afford a second home. I'll still have my hunting property and sanctuary, and she gets to be closer to the hospital and much better multicultural experience, which I know she enjoys. We're going to look at renting a place for a while, because the Canadian housing market is on the verge of collapse with interest rates as they are now. It's worth renting for a year or two to see if prices drop. I was clear with her that I don't plan to stop fishing for many years yet, but that when my son is ready, I will let him take up some of the work captaining my boat so that I'm at least home for a week here and there, at least until second boat captain retires at the end of 2025 and I give that boat to my son full-time. But we can figure that out later. Ending my 5-year marriage over a paternity test my mother-in-law requested. I don't know where to start. This whole situation is embarrassing and I'm just done with it. I've been with my husband for 5 years now, married for 3. Well, long story short, his mom was always overwhelming and bold with her input on everything, to put it nicely. I genuinely think it's not fair to be mad at your partner for something he didn't do himself. He can't control what his mom does or says. But what's also not fair is him not addressing it when I'm clearly uncomfortable or upset, and instead just talking me into brushing it off or going with it. I never, nor would I ever, have a back and forth with my mother-in-law. It's just not worth barking at each other. I always kind of brush it off if it's a snarky comment or if it's a better way to do something in her opinion. I'll just tell her thanks for the suggestion, but we're good. It's actually true, the saying, when you marry someone, you marry their family. I think the way to handle it is each spouse should keep his side of the family in line, for lack of a better way to say it. I deal with my parents and their shenanigans, and I expected him to do the same. He never did. He always asks me to give her some grace. Well, it's hard when that person is insulting you. For a while now, she's been making comments about how my son doesn't look like my husband when he was a toddler, basically accusing me of sleeping around. This definitely upset me. Sorry, my genes are strong. What do I tell you? I was short with my husband because he didn't address how out of pocket and disrespectful this whole thing is. It's been a week since my husband, well, soon-to-be ex-husband, told me that he would be doing a paternity DNA test, not because he thinks that it's not his son, but to shut his mom up. Yes, that's what he said. I don't know which one is worse, him accusing me of cheating or this crap, but all I know is this is audacious. I didn't cheat, and I'm not concerned one bit about the test results. I wasn't going to stop him from taking a DNA test or whatever, but I just know that I don't want to deal with this any longer. I'm looking for an appointment, and I've talked to a lawyer the day after he brought up the DNA test, and I've been acting more than normal since. We'll be getting the results in 2 days. I can't wait. He will also be getting divorce papers with that too. I know for a fact he won't even see it coming. I tried my best to make this whole thing work and manage my relationship with my mother-in-law as gracefully as possible. But thinking about it, it's not just my mother-in-law that's the problem, but how he's handling things that's also a problem. And side note, I've never been more glad that I didn't leave my job when I got married. He makes more than enough to take care of the financial side of things. I thought I would get bored. I only have to be on site 2 days per week. Also, I really love my job and the company, so I didn't leave. Best decision I ever made. He is unreliable to say the least. I know that divorce can be hard on kids, but I experienced the other side, living with 2 parents that hated each other and fought almost all of the time. It was hard. They thought that staying together would be good for me and my siblings. Newsflash, it wasn't. It was horrible to say the least. I either read somewhere or maybe my therapist told me that when you fight with your spouse, you shouldn't see it as me versus you, but more like me and you versus the particular situation or problem on hand and try to figure it out. But it's really hard to do so when you start hating that person. I don't want my son to live like that because I just can't stand my husband anymore. I don't know if this is a weird way of saying it, but I just don't respect him anymore, if that makes sense. I just see an unreliable man, and I know for a fact that our fights won't be the same as before. I would have said what a waste of 5 years, but I have a sweet and smart gremlin now, and having a kid really pushes you to be a better person and to do better, so I can't complain. Update. I have a comment about my last post. Please, if you're going through something serious, think twice before posting it. Obviously, I was expecting people to tell me I'm overreacting, or even that I'm a jerk. But there are also people who would leave you with comments like, "You're a disgusting jerk. I hope he takes your kid away from you during the divorce and you realize what kind of monster you are," and go on about their day, which was my cue to stop reading comments that night. The day he was supposed to receive the results, I called my father-in-law and invited them to come over that evening. He was working when he got the results. He sent them to me and told me that he would talk to his mother to finally put this to rest. I informed him that I had already invited them for this evening, and I'm just waiting for my apology before I leave. I asked that he come home so we can talk before they come over. He called, and I basically told him that this is not working for me anymore. I've already talked to an attorney, filed for divorce, and it might be more expensive than a paternity test, but it would be more effective making his mother happy. And no, I don't care that he was working when I told him. I don't think you would have either. He left work and came home. Long story short, we had a spectacular fight. He said that I'm not thinking about my son and I'm overreacting because it's not like he went behind my back. And if he knew that I was this upset, he wouldn't have done it. But he knew. We fought about it when he brought it up. He just didn't care. When I gave him the divorce papers, he said he's not signing anything, and he'll ask his mother to apologize when his parents arrive and get done with this. Listen, I don't need him to sign it to get a divorce. It would only make things complicated, but that's it. His mother said she has nothing to apologize for. She wouldn't apologize for having suspicions. She didn't accuse me of anything, and I can leave if I want to. So that's that. I did leave that night because I wasn't going to get an apology, and he didn't seem to understand that him reinforcing that it's okay for her to meddle is why I wanted a divorce in the first place. He eventually told his parents he'll be coming over from time to check up on them. He's their only kid, and not to bother coming over anymore until she apologizes. She wasn't amused. She told me I'm taking her son away. She's not someone that you can talk to, I'll tell you that much. It's like talking to a brick wall. All she knows is insulting or being passive-aggressive on a good day. We're not getting a divorce. We talked the day after. He said I can always file for a divorce, but we should at least try couples counseling because he doesn't want a co-parent. Edit. He doesn't want to lose his son, plain and simple. Although it's not like if we were to get divorced, he wouldn't be able to see him, but whatever. He did say, when we talked the second time, that he can now see that he was wrong, especially knowing his mother. He also mentioned that he'll just shut her down if she meddles this time. But what can I do with just words? I hope he can learn a thing or two on how to deal with his mother in counseling because she's truly overwhelming. If counseling would help him understand that a couple means two people, not three, and our marriage is a bit crowded right now, then that's enough for me. People saying that I'm overreacting in my last post made me ask myself, do I actually want a divorce or am I just mad? I wanted the divorce at the time. It seemed like the only solution. But if counseling would help us, I can try to work things out. I hope this is a good decision. If not, I am not stuck. I'll take my son and leave. I have a friend who got divorced in 20 days. When you're on the same page regarding how things would be divided, including custody, it's a matter of how long the court would take to review and finalize the divorce, and you'll be done. That was my plan. Nonetheless, I'm the one working from home, and my son is still so young. It's totally up to him. If he wants to see his son every day when he gets off work, or if he wants to see his son just a couple of times per week, because I'm not tolerating this anymore. Oh, one last thing. People in my last post were debating if paternity tests should be mandatory or not. I thought that from what I wrote, it was clear I didn't cheat and I have nothing against paternity tests. It should be obvious to everyone that it's not fair for the kid nor the man to be tricked into living a lie. If he was the one who had suspicions, that's a big deal. We would have talked about why he thinks that, taken the paternity test for his peace of mind, and made sure we can trust each other before moving on, all without anyone interfering, let alone requesting it. Am I the jerk for telling my son he needs to live with the consequences of ignoring what his kids were saying? My son lost his first wife when their two kids were preschoolers. My grandson is now 17 and my granddaughter is almost 16. Their relationship with my son has been on a downward spiral for years. It started when he and his current wife moved in together. She had two kids of her own, and early on they showed extreme jealousy whenever their mom would pay any attention or buy anything for my grandkids. They were older, teenagers, and said a number of cruel things to my grandkids. My grandkids told my son, they told my wife and I, and we spoke to our son, but he ignored all four of us. My wife also spoke to my son's second wife prior to the wedding, and she said her kids would adjust in time. My grandkids spent years living with two much older kids who said all kinds of mean stuff to them that they shouldn't have been saying. They accused them of stealing from them because their mom shouldn't be doing anything for them. They accused the younger kids of stealing from them because their mom shouldn't be doing anything for them. There were incidents where they broke the stuff their mom bought my grandkids. My wife and I pleaded with our son to do something to help his kids. We said they didn't deserve to be raised like that. The problems continued even after the older kids moved out. They still expressed a lot of jealousy and hatred for my grandkids. I never interacted much with my son's stepkids. I saw them a handful of times over the years. My son has been married to his current wife. They would mostly go to their dad if my son and his wife were spending time with us or any of our other kids. Or they would reject offers to spend time with us. But the few times I did see them, I was always shocked by how blatant their hatred was and how my son never appeared to care. One incident in particular stands out. It was my granddaughter's birthday and she got some art kit that she had wanted. It set off the two older kids who called their names, and they even broke part of the kit. My wife and I spoke up to our son and his wife, but they did nothing and said nothing. My grandkids now spend a lot of time with myself and my wife. They hardly speak to their dad despite living under his roof. They wanted us to get custody of them, but we were denied, so they have taken to doing their best to make it through the next 2 years. My son is only now starting to care that the relationship with his kids has been destroyed. He asked me why we tried to fight for custody of the kids when he's their dad, and he accused my wife and I of turning the kids against him. This is when I stopped him, and I said we didn't turn them against him. He's just living with the consequences of ignoring what they've been telling him. I told him he put them through years of bullying so he could get married and stay married, and now he has to live with his decision. My son ranted at me and said the last thing any parent should do is try to make their kid feel crappy about themselves, which is what I was doing. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Wow, the irony of your son suggesting that you are making him feel bad. What about how bad he's made his kids feel for years? The obliviousness of some people. Good luck helping those kids make it through the next year until they can both move out. One question, did you take the time to tell your step-grandkids off? If you haven't, might I suggest you do that as soon as possible and in front of your grandkids? I bet they would really love to see that. OP, I never called them out. We hardly ever saw them and we don't see them at all now. My girlfriend has one incredibly annoying habit that I cannot stand. Okay, this is gonna sound petty. I promise you it isn't to me. We've been dating for almost 2 years, and in almost every way, she's the one for me. I want to get married to her. However, I realize this sounds so petty, but for some reason it bothers me so much. She has the absolute worst restaurant etiquette. 1, she barely tips. We both have good jobs. Money's not a problem for her or I. We kind of take turns paying when we go out to eat. I normally tip 20%, maybe a little more or less depending on the situation. Over the weekend, she tipped $3 on a $46 bill. Sometimes I've tried to leave cash on the table, but she gets upset, takes it, and hands it back to me. We've only had a few fights, and almost every one of them have started like this. She's absolutely convinced that throwing a few dollars is more than enough. She gets all of this from her family. Her parents took us out last Christmas to a very expensive steakhouse. Her dad made an absolute scene and production of tipping $20 on a $500 plus bill because it's the holidays. 2, she sends almost every dish back. Something is always wrong with whatever she ordered. The hamburger is not done enough or done too much. There's dirt in the lettuce in her salad. The pasta isn't cooked enough. You get the idea. Every time. 3, she expects the waitstaff to be paying attention to her needs instantaneously. She's not necessarily verbally mistreating them, but she does keep making demands. Water or iced tea needs to be constantly refilled. We need more napkins. This fork is dirty, etc. If she's expecting or asking for something and that person isn't right there, she'll start asking me, loudly, where are they to get some attention? And 4, she argues over the bill every time, demanding to speak with the manager to have something taken off or reduced because she wasn't satisfied. It doesn't matter if it's Applebee's or the Capitol Grill. Never pay the full amount. I'm 100% sure this all comes from how her parents act in restaurants. I've seen them do this every time we've gone out to eat together. It isn't a money thing either. They're not struggling. It's to the point that I don't like going out to eat with her because I know what's going to happen. She's completely aware of how tipping is supposed to work, but insists that it's optional and to stop throwing money away. There's no other situation where she has this antisocial behavior except restaurants. I can't get my mind around it. Everywhere else, she's kind, reasonable, sweet person. But as soon as she's in a restaurant, she turns into this. How do I convince her that this type of behavior needs to change and is really bothersome and antisocial? I've tried explaining time and time again, and it goes in one ear and out the other. You need to tell her that if this behavior while dining out doesn't drastically change, that you'll no longer be interested in going out to eat with her anymore. I was in the service industry for over 10 years, and one of the things I look for in people, friends or partners, is how they treat others when they are in a perceived position of power. As the customer, you're technically in the power position because even if you're a jerk, your server has to be pleasant with you. Then we go back into the kitchen and talk about what a jerk you are. So she uses this opportunity where she has the upper hand to be absolutely terrible. This is a big deal, and I doubt you'll ever convince her otherwise. She does this because she thinks she's above those serving her. Petty? Dude, that's not petty at all. The fact that you know she's going to send food back before the food has even arrived is infuriating. I would start telling waitresses when you sit down, "Hey, just a heads up, my girlfriend will probably send the food back after it arrives and then demand a discount on the bill, so just be ready for that." If she really sees no problem with the behavior, then she shouldn't have any problem being open about it, right? I'm sorry, but your girlfriend is a bad person. I could never date someone like that. Edit. For everyone that says you shouldn't do this to people you date, totally agree. But we all have an in-law or two that acts like this, right? Maybe toss a log in the fire the next time you're out with a crappy family member that does this, and do this to them. If you think warning a stranger of your partner's behavior every time you go out is a good long-term solution, just end the relationship. This girl has so many red flags, they would be given special treatment on Twitter. I'm 27 male. My ex-girlfriend, who's 26, wants to try again. My ex-girlfriend and I first got together 6 years ago, and from day one, we got on like two peas in a pod. Then after 2.5 years together, she fell pregnant. We had spoken about kids before, and we both wanted a family, but not after just 2 years together. We spoke about it a lot, asked a few of our friends that already had kids, and eventually decided to go for it. We also agreed that even if our relationship doesn't last, our kids' well-being would always come first. Right before the lockdown in 2020, 3 weeks before the due date, we welcomed a perfect little girl, and both of us were completely infatuated. It was a big adjustment, but our girl was an angel, and we settled into parenthood rather quickly. Everything was going great at first, but 3 months later, it all changed. I was working late when I got a text from my mother saying that my girlfriend dropped our daughter off while she ran some errands, but 4 hours later she hadn't returned, and now she wasn't answering her phone. I called too, but she didn't answer me either. I got out of work, collected my daughter, and went home to find a note from my girlfriend. She said that she couldn't handle the stress of lockdown and the baby, and she just needed some time to clear her head. She also said not to call and that we would talk soon, but days turned to weeks with no contact from her or anyone else other than her sister, who visited my niece often but never mentioned my girlfriend. Fast forward 3 years, and my ex-girlfriend is slowly starting to reach out again. It was slow at first, liking photos of our girl on Instagram and the odd comment, but that was it until last week. She sent me a text saying that she had seen how well our daughter and I are doing and asking if we could meet up. I was reluctant, but we agreed before our daughter was born that her well-being is what mattered the most. So reluctantly, I agreed to meet for a coffee so she can see our girl. But I'm having second thoughts. How do I forgive her for walking out on me, and more importantly, on our daughter? Update. As we agreed, my ex and I met up a few days ago in a local cafe, and I got there early to try and work out what I was going to say to her after 3 years. While I hadn't mentioned it in my original post, I had no intention of bringing our daughter along. My ex had contact numbers of my family members, so she was with a coworker. And when my ex arrived, she was a little disappointed, but not all that surprised to see that I was alone. The next few minutes mainly consisted of small talk before we eventually addressed the enormous elephant in the room, where she had been hiding for 3 years of our daughter's life. She admitted that she had suffered a lot with postpartum depression and she couldn't bear to show it in front of our girl. She acknowledged that leaving the way she did was wrong, but she wanted to be able to focus solely on herself while she got therapy. I asked why it took her 3 years to resurface. She sent a text for our daughter's first birthday, but that was it. and she broke down, admitting that she was so scared of what I thought of her for disappearing. In a way, she was right to be scared, because while I could come to terms with being dumped, I was furious because she left our daughter. Throughout our conversation, I could tell she's grown a lot as a person over the last few years, which is something. We spoke for well over an hour, and when I finally got up to leave, she asked where we stood. I told her that I appreciate that she's really been trying to turn her life around, but it's going to take time for me to fully move on. But as a show of good faith, I showed her a video of our girl. It's about 6 or 7 months old, but it's my favorite. It's her and one of my dad's cows mooing at each other. Just before I left, I got her phone number so we can maintain a bit of proper contact rather than through social media, and I agreed to send her a couple of pictures of our daughter. I appreciate all of the advice I got last time, and I'm wondering where my ex and I go from here. My hope is that we can coexist and maintain a healthy friendship for our daughter's sake, but after what happened before, it's hard to fully trust my ex. What do you guys think? Side note, 2 things I didn't mention to my ex. I have zero intentions of rekindling our relationship. I'm open to co-parenting if she can prove she's not going to pull another disappearing act, but that's it. I really loved her once, but I'm a different person now, and that ship has well and truly sailed. At one point, I considered putting our girl up for adoption. She was about 9 months at the time. I was mentally and emotionally drained. Work was stressing me out, and coming home to my daughter just didn't give me any joy as much as I love her. I was going through the process, but one night I looked in at her in her cot. She looked back at me, and the look on her little face, a cute little smile, and her blue eyes shining like I was her whole world. It told me that things would get better, so I canceled the adoption and never looked back. Update 2. So, down to business. Per my ex's request, I accompanied her to a session with her therapist, and she reassured me that she and my ex have made good progress, but she still has some issues to work through. Specifically, her relationship with her parents. She told me they separated and her mother had a temper, but I didn't know how bad it really was. After the session, my ex left and I hung on for a minute to ask her therapist for her opinion regarding reintroducing my daughter to my ex. She recommended holding off for now and offered me a free session to talk about it, so I'm going to see her next week. On a more positive note, my daughter started preschool 2 weeks ago and is already making friends and has been absolutely loving life. And I sent my ex a few photos of her to show some support, so things are looking up. Thanks again to everyone that has commented so far. The support that I've been getting is incredible. Makes the struggle of raising a kid alone a little better. My own daughter stole $62,000 from me. My wife and I are in the fortunate position of being wealthy. We had to work very hard to get to where we are, and we never forgot where we came from. Our kids grew up as rich kids, but we never spoiled them, even when we could have. They went to nice schools and had nice things, but they also had summer jobs and after-school jobs to pay for their own extras. We also push philanthropy in our family, so our kids recognize they are privileged and that our life isn't even remotely how regular people live. I'd say for the most part, our kids have grown up to be respectful and good people. Our oldest kids are twin boys, and their sister is 18 months younger than them. All 3 are in college now. Our youngest 2 are in 8th grade. I got a call from our bank a couple days ago saying that someone had cashed a check that was charged to our bank account in the amount of $61,347, and that the check had been made out to the tuition office at the university my oldest 3 kids attend. Naturally, I investigated the matter myself with the university, and I got some answers. I pieced together that one of my kids snagged my checkbook and wrote a tuition check for a friend of theirs. There's a much bigger story behind why this kid couldn't pay, but that's private, and my wife and I agreed to fund this young person's education because of their private struggles. I grilled my kids and figured out that it was our daughter, Joanna. Joanna was apologetic, but she was also quite insistent that she stood behind her actions. I respect my daughter for her convictions, and she really did have good reasons for why she did it. But the fact remains that she stole, and then she hid it from us. Joanna asked what her punishment is, and I told her to get a job because she now owes her mother and I $62,000. Here's the thing. I don't expect Joanna to pay us back, and if she came to me tomorrow with the money, I wouldn't even take it. What I want is to see her make an effort, an acknowledgement of her actions and the consequences. If I see that she's actively trying, I'll tell her that she doesn't have to pay me back. She's my kid, and I love her, so all I want is for her to learn a lesson. But Joanna doesn't know any of this. All she thinks is that she now owes me $62,000, so naturally I'm a horrible father and a very mean person. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I actually think you should follow through and expect her to pay it back in full. Same. Otherwise, she'll think from now on, oh, I just have to do what he wants for a couple weeks and I'll be good. My husband saw this post as well and thought of a good idea. OP lets the kid get a job and lets her pay him back for a year. Don't tell her it's just for a year, but at the end of the year, forgive the rest of the money. So she gets to spend a whole year learning the value of $1, as she clearly doesn't right now, and see how little a minimum wage job will even make a dent in that kind of money. And he can either keep the money or put it in savings for her for a later event. I think you're on spot for how you're addressing the sneaking, stealing, and lies. I'm sure you made it clear, had she come to you and made a case for helping this person out, there would have been no consequence, but that the disciplinary action is a result of the dishonesty and the theft, not the jerk. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for the way they're punishing her or not? Please let us know. I think this is what you call great parenting. Am I the jerk for evicting our tenants of 22 years? Our son is 22 years old. When he was born, we bought a second home, always with the intention of gifting it to him when he was an adult. It's a modest home, 2-bedroom bungalow with a developed basement that has an additional room, about 10 minutes from where we live. When we bought it, we listed it for rent, and a lovely couple started renting. They went on to have 6 kids. They chose not to move and continued living in the 3-bedroom home with the kids. The dad works, the mom stays home. Important to note that we bought this home in the year 2000. Even with a 15-year mortgage, the mortgage was quite low, and the rent not much more than the mortgage. We've only raised the rent 4 times in the 22 years that they've lived there, and the rent is still well below average for our area. I did look it up. An average rent where we are for a similar house is $2,000 to $2,600 a month. Our renters have only been paying $1,300 a month. When they started renting, we did talk to them. We did tell them that this house was eventually for our son. We never actually expected to have the same renters for 22 years. Our son graduated university in June and has been staying with us since then. But he's a responsible young man, and we decided that Christmas would be a good time to gift him this home. At the beginning of September, we talked to our tenants and gave them a 2-month election notice, figuring we'd have November and December to get the house cleaned on any repairs done. Understandably, they are not happy. They've been posting all over social media about what bad people we are, kicking them out, how they can't afford to rent anything big enough for their family. Their oldest kid, who's 19, even found my son on Facebook and sent him a horrible message. He had no idea we were planning to gift this to him. Their Facebook posts have been shared in our local community groups, and everyone is commenting about what evil landlords we are. Am I the jerk for evicting long-term tenants so our son can move in? Edit to add. We did mention gifting the house to our son when he started university, so we told them when they moved in back in 2000 and when he started uni in 2018. Edit 2. It wasn't a legal eviction notice. We also didn't break the lease. 5 years ago, they decided not to renew as they thought they might buy soon and move to a month-to-month lease. Edit 3. It seems 2 months is not long enough notice. I have sent them an email giving them an additional 2 months, bringing it up to 4 months notice. Edit 4. I sent this to my husband. He told me when he was there in April installing a new hot water tank that he told them, well, the dad, that we'd likely be giving notice this summer. What kind of entitled nonsense is going on here where people are calling you a villain? All renters know that they aren't paying for their own mortgage and they have no entitlement to your property whatsoever. They're on a month-to-month lease. You're telling me that lease is ending. They should have saved up money for this. 60 days is a great deal of notice for people who told you years ago that they wanted to buy a house and didn't want to resign the lease. This BS about getting a house you didn't pay for is just a load of BS. You did. Your credit is on that house. You did the down payment, which is what allows the mortgage to be so low, and the home loan is in your name. Not the jerk. These comments are so entitled. Not the jerk. You literally gave them 22 years to prepare. How could you be the jerk? Everyone here saying you're the jerk is insane. You've been more than fair, even keeping them at a low rent. How could they say you're the jerk? You aren't responsible for providing them housing. Based on their actions, I would hold firm on a 2-month deadline. Had they been civil, I would have extended it, but they do not deserve it. You will be lucky if they don't wreck the house at this point. Everyone sucks here. It's your right to evict them, but I feel like 2 months is way too short notice given that they've lived there for 22 years, they have 6 kids and only 1 income. The holidays are coming up, and we're in a recession where inflation is insane. You only charge them about half of what rent is going to cost them anywhere else, so they're going to have to get a different job or another job to afford it, and the job market is horrible at the moment. That being said, they could have talked to you about being able to stay there longer until they can make arrangements to afford a similar house, but they chose to get on Facebook and be salty rather than do anything productive. ETA 2. The amount of y'all telling me it's not OP's responsibility, blah blah blah. First of all, learn to read, cause I never said it was. Second of all, do y'all live in caves and never interact with people outside of the internet? Must be the case if y'all have absolutely no sense of compassion. You can tell me I'm wrong till you're blue in the face, but you simply will not convince me that having compassion for others is wrong. Stay mad about it. I told my daughter that we're only paying for 4 years of college and she's not happy about it. My wife and I are well off and we're very grateful for it. We have 4 kids and this is about our 3rd kid, Bella. We have a rule for college, and the rule is that you need to get your degree in 4 years. We will pay for it, and if you graduate earlier, we'll give you extra money for your own use. For example, my oldest graduated in 4 years and had no debt. My second oldest graduated early. They took summer classes, and we gave him money that he is using for a down payment on a home. If they're doing a 5-year program, we will pay, but if they leave that program for a normal one, then it goes back to 4. Now Bella has changed her major twice already, and she's a junior right now. She told us that she's changing her major again. I reminded her that we're only paying for 4 years. This is where we got into an argument. She's upset that we won't pay even though we have the cash. My argument is that we had already told her and we're not going to change it now. By the end of it, she called me an unsupportive parent/jerk and says that I'm having her go into debt for pursuing her passion. Am I the jerk? She won't talk to me at the moment. This is your daughter we're talking about. If you can afford it, you should pay. I'm going with everyone sucks here. I don't understand how anyone could just let their kid drown in debt just because she's not sure about her future. I feel sorry for her. I know stressing over money and debt while my parents are well off enough to have helped would hurt me. Also, why would her siblings be upset? It isn't about them. They already got everything they need and more, and less time too. Good for them. What does your wife think? Why is Bella changing majors again? Has she shown that she's not applying herself or that she's a good student? Because she changed her major doesn't mean she won't have enough credits to graduate. She will have bigger workload, but that doesn't mean she can't do it. She should speak to an advisor. I don't think you're a jerk because you reminded her, but it seems like the priority should be Bella finds success and is happy with her degree choice. She can still get this done in 4 years. If money is your priority, then Bella needs to understand how she can either graduate on time or how much it will cost her for loans. Maybe she won't switch her degree. No jerks here. OP. My wife is annoyed with her. She's a B student for the most part. She didn't like what she is doing, so that's why she's changing. She won't have enough credits since she needs to make up for the sophomore classes for the new major. She is literature right now, and she's jumping to data collection. You're the jerk. Don't be surprised when your daughter goes no contact with you. Why do rich people who can afford to pay for their kids' college insist on being selfish and greedy with their money? Did you decide to bring your daughter into the world? Yes. So then why are you cheaping out on paying for her college education? You as parents owe your kid at least a college education as the bare minimum. The bar is set so low, yet parents will always find a way to fail their kids. If you loved your daughter, you would have no problem paying for her education, no matter what, even if it means taking out loans for her because that's what a good parent would do. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. I think that last commenter's got more issues than Time magazine. Am I the jerk for asking my husband to not eat lunch at night? We're a one-income family. We have a 10-year-old and a baby who's under 1. I don't and can't work due to health and chronic pain issues. My husband works full-time, usually 35 to 40 hours a week. When I cook dinner, I make enough so my husband has leftovers to take to work the next day. He has the habit of eating what's supposed to be in his lunch as a large nighttime snack before bed. We have plenty of stuff he can snack on or heat up that's not his lunch for the next day. Then he ends up eating out instead, and he hates fast food, so he spends $20 to $25 on lunch each day that he eats his lunch as a snack. This adds up and makes money tighter for us. I get it's his income, but it's affecting the entire family. I've asked him to not eat his lunch as a snack, but he says he loves my cooking and can't help it, and I should feel complimented he enjoys it so much. But I also like knowing that our bills will all be paid and we can afford gas, groceries, household supplies, and stuff for the kids without being in the red each week. Am I the jerk? Edit. If I make more for dinner, he will have third or fourth helpings. I do the grocery shopping and I try to get everything I can on his snack list. He will still eat his lunch as a snack. Hubby is a recovering gambling addict and currently owes $100,000 in back taxes that I'm trying to also budget to pay towards each month. He currently works in retail, making around $40K a year. He has a master's in economics and used to make $200,000, but some bad decisions in life messed that up and he ended up in legal trouble and can no longer work in his former industry. Not the jerk. Having been in this position, the only thing that worked was sitting my husband down and actually showing him the numbers. Say he's eating out 3 times a week. That's $60 to $75 per week, or $240 to $300 per month, $2,800 to $3,600 per year. Girl, that's a family vacation that he's eating. That's a full month's or more rent or mortgage, simply because he won't save dinner leftovers for lunch and stop eating out. Lay out the actual cost of his snacking and give him a reality shock. It might help put things into perspective for him. Good luck. And also, why can't your husband make something for his lunch if he's eaten the leftovers at night? This right here, he has the impulse control of a kid, so he eats the yummy things at night. So why isn't he then taking something else for lunch instead of wasting their money buying lunch? There are a decent amount of people in this thread expecting OP to cook more and portion it out and hide it away to deal with him being selfish. Why is he allowed daily takeout they can't afford, but OP isn't? There is absolutely zero reason he should be eating out with that much debt owed. Also, he should learn some self-control. All these suggestions of portioning out 2 meals, just no. This grown man needs to learn to restrain his impulsivity and leave his homemade lunch alone. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for not wanting to name my baby after my late mother-in-law? I'm 5 months pregnant with me and my husband's daughter, and we can't agree on a name for the baby. Like, we can't even sit down and make a list of names to consider. My husband keeps insisting that he wants our daughter to be named after his mom. Her fake name was Mildred, so our daughter would get bullied for having an old lady name, since that's just how kids are and will always be. He keeps saying we can just call her Millie and would still be on the roll call as Mildred. Not only that, but Mildred was horrible to me. She was sweet as sugar around everyone, but as soon as it was the 2 of us, she was the cruelest person imaginable and made it abundantly clear that she despised me. I don't want to name my daughter after a woman who hated me from day one. My husband has never believed me when I told him how Mildred treated me and thought that it was just a normal thing for a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law to disagree and that I was just over-exaggerating. He and Mildred were very close. He visits her all the time, calls all the time, everything. Towards the end, he'd visit her multiple times a week in the hospital, usually for hours at a time. He'd go straight to her after work and stayed until he was told to leave. Her passing really took a toll on him, so I understood that he wants to honor her, but I can't ignore how she treated me when he wasn't around. I feel like I'm losing my mind. My husband doesn't want to call our daughter anything but Mildred, and I want to call her anything other than Mildred. Am I the jerk? Edit. My husband won't compromise. He doesn't want Mildred as a middle name. His reasoning is that no one cares about middle names, and that since it won't be in her first name, it won't really be honoring her. At least not enough, since Mildred is our daughter's grandmother and not a great aunt or something. Not the jerk, but your husband is for denying your feelings. Here's a question I haven't seen yet. Did your mother-in-law even like the name Mildred? OP. She liked everything the old-fashioned way, so I'd assume so. I never asked if she liked her name. She passed a few years back, before me and my husband seriously considered if and when we wanted to have kids. I would die on this hill, as Mildred is an ugly and old-fashioned name. The fact he doesn't believe you about how she treated you alone is a huge red flag, and honestly, I would give your husband a wake-up call and let him read all the comments. Please tell your husband it is not normal for a daughter-in-law and mother-in-law to always argue or disagree. Most well-adjusted people understand boundaries and try not to overstep, apologize when they do, and try their best to get along. He sounds like he was a mama's boy, and it was her passing that finally cut the strings. I would bet he never supported you when disagreements occurred. If you're willing to agree to Mildred as a middle name, he should be happy. It's an old-fashioned name, and teachers often call out kids by their full name, at least at first. This is a hill I would die on. You had a bad relationship with her. That name is just off your list, so it cannot be considered. Not the jerk. Update. We found a compromise. It took me having to track down an ex to tell him that Mildred wasn't all sugar and spice and everything nice, but he finally understood and we had a long talk. He still wanted to call the baby Mildred, but agreed it was a little too old. We compromised on Amelia, with Millie for short, so that there's still an homage to Mildred as they were very close. I'm ready to pop, and we're happier than ever. Unsatisfying Redditor updates. What the heck? Why does X's thoughts have more validity than his wife's? I understand that it helped her case with the name, but major marinara flags all around. OP's husband doesn't have respect for her. Today I messed up by stalking my husband's Reddit account. When we met and the entire 3 years we dated before we married, I was always firm about not wanting kids. My husband told me that his stance on kids was along the lines of kind of undecided, but overall not a good idea. Always said he used to want kids, but changed his mind later in life. I wholeheartedly believed him until I decided to snoop. We're both pretty avid Reddit users, and he wanted to brag to me about how many upvotes one of his comments had. I watched him as he clicked on his profile to find it, and I caught his username and a glimpse of another comment where it looked like he was talking about me. We've never tried hiding each other's accounts from one another, so it's not like his was secret, but I still feel a little bad for letting curiosity get the best of me. I looked up his username later in the day to check out what he had to say about me. To his credit, he was gushing about me, and it was really sweet. But quite a few of his other comments also talked about how he wished he could have kids of his own, and that the only thing stopping him is me. Talks about how his desire to be with me outmatches his desire to have kids, but he's still heartbroken that he can't have both. I still don't know what to make of it. On one hand, I'm hurt that in the almost 10 years we've been together, he's never talked to me about this, and instead lied to make it seem like we were on the same page. I feel immense guilt that I've taken such a choice away from him, especially after reading about just how badly he wants it. On the other hand, and I can't believe I'm about to type this out, it's making me rethink my stance. For the first time in my 32 years of existence, I'm uncertain about whether I want kids or not. I've always thought pregnancy and birth sounds like a nightmare, and I simply don't have the mental bandwidth to devote all of my time to raising a kid. But suddenly I'm having daydreams about it all. Just last night I fell asleep while thinking about what would happen if my birth control failed, and we decided to just roll with it instead of getting rid of it. Every argument I try to come up with against it is easily refuted by how our life is currently going. We own a house, we both have good jobs that pay well, and I work from home on my own schedule, so we wouldn't have to worry about daycare or extended maternity leave. The fact that I'm even reconsidering is absolutely terrifying. What if I think on it for another year, decide to go for it, and then regret it? What if I'm only thinking about it now because I want to make him happy? What if I decide to ignore these thoughts and later regret not trying before we get too old? What if he thinks he wants me now, but later resents me for not letting him live the life he's always wanted? I regret looking into his Reddit account. I wish I could go back to a few days ago where this wasn't on my mind and I thought things were going great between us. I'm sorry if this isn't as interesting as "today I messed up by hooking up with someone's mom" or whatever usually gets popular. I just needed to get all of this off my chest. To address a few things I've seen mentioned by you guys. 1. Don't worry, I'm not throwing out my birth control tonight and jumping straight to baby making. I'm honestly still leaning more into the not having kids side. And if my mind changes more, it's still not happening until we both want one without a shadow of a doubt. 2. Just talk to him, communicate. I appreciate the concern, but keeping it to myself forever was never an option for me. Our communication is usually fantastic, and I'm planning on sitting down with him. I was just panicking a bit while writing this and wasn't sure the when, how, or how I'd like to share it with him. 3. Why do you think doing the same thing he did will solve your problems? You know what? You got me there. I'll probably show him this post eventually anyway, so I'm not sure how much water these comments hold. But you may be right that I shouldn't have shared this with strangers on the internet. I will say though, I kinda get why people do it now. To quote one of my own comments, it's like having a sea of little angels and devils on your shoulder, which to be honest is a little cool and almost cathartic. Update. Okay, I started out by saying, don't freak out, this isn't anything super serious. It's just me being classic Jane. I then went on to explain that I was extremely sorry for invading his privacy, but that I looked up his account and read some of his comments, and he interrupted me by laughing. He didn't just laugh, he saw what a wreck I was, and he had the audacity to guffaw loud enough to startle me. He then said, "So, that was you." You guys were right, he found my original post. I feel silly for thinking he wouldn't, but I figured it wouldn't get as popular as it did, and between him spending most of the day at work instead of on Reddit, and saying he wasn't a fan of subreddits like these, that he would somehow miss it. In my defense, I had changed enough details about our lives that he wasn't totally sure until I told him I found his account. But yeah, he had his suspicions. He set me down at this point and basically said, "I know you well enough to know you don't actually want kids. This is just a phase." I won't go into details because it's pretty personal, but he presented his arguments for why he thinks that, and he is 100% right. He then followed up with, "I don't think you interpreted what I wrote correctly." He doesn't want to share his account with everyone, so I won't copy and paste the comment. But when he wrote that he loved me more than he wanted to have kids, he didn't mean that he was giving up that life just to make me happy. He meant that being with me completely changed his outlook. Us being together meant that we could travel anywhere we want together, have romantic dates where we stay out as late as we want, do things at 4 a.m. without having to worry about being too loud or waking anyone up. He realized that he doesn't want kids when he married me because he didn't want to share our life together with anyone else. When I asked him why he said he felt heartbroken that he couldn't have both, he explained that he didn't articulate that comment very well. He wasn't necessarily heartbroken that he could never have kids of his own, but rather he was grieving the loss of his imaginary kids and a mentality he held on to for his entire life up until he changed his mind. I imagine it felt a little bit like my freakout in the original post where I was scared and confused. Anyway, everything went smoothly, and we decided by the end of our conversation to stick without having kids, but we'll regularly check in with each other about in case we ever change our minds. I went to serve in the military for 1 month and came back to find my girlfriend had changed. For context, OP lives in Turkey. Normally, military service is 6 months, but there was a law passed in 2019 that allowed for 1 month service with a payment of 31,000 Turkish lira, about $1,130 US. Me and my girlfriend have been dating for 2 years. I was planning to propose in the next 3 months, and I was extremely sure that she was going to say yes, as we've been planning our lives together. She was hinting that I should propose by sending me cheeky proposal posts, signaling that she wants an engagement ring on her finger, and she sometimes would say, "when we get married." We lived together. Admittedly, we started fast and rushed into things. We started living together a month into our relationship. We've been living together ever since. She was always so loving with me. This is the best relationship I've ever had. She always made me feel loved, cared for, and even if she is somewhat selfish by nature, she always put me first. And she loves me very much, and I love her very much. I have been the perfect boyfriend. I kept taking her out on dates, giving her gifts, helping her around the house, solving her problems, and giving her affection and care. We never fought, not even once. But then things changed. I had to go and serve in the military for a month. She dropped me off at the bus station, kissed me, hugged me, cried, said that she loves me and would miss me a lot, etc. While I was in the military, she sent me texts saying how much she missed me and how she cared for me a lot, speaking in a loving manner. After about 4 days though, she stopped. During the month, we barely spoke, and only when I called. She sent me 20 texts at least. When I came back, she came to welcome me. She was very distant. She didn't even seem happy that I was back. Everything felt so off about her. We went back to our home, and I asked what was wrong and why she was acting this way. We spoke about it for hours, and she said that during my absence, she realized that she had too much love and wanted to cool off a bit. She said we rushed into things and she wants me to move out as she was not ready for this kind of life where we live together. She said that she wanted to live a little and not do everything together. She wanted to go on dates with me and experience the things we haven't experienced because we immediately moved in together. She wants to go out and have fun on her own too, and she wants the space for herself, her own order of things. She's studying medicine and she's in her last year, and she wants to focus more on that too. I said, okay, I'll move out, but I don't feel like this explains her being so distant. I asked if there was somebody else, and she said no. She said that she only wants to live her life like a 24-year-old and not a 30-year-old. I don't keep her from dressing the way she wants to, and I don't get jealous when she goes out with her friends, but I understand that me being there 24/7 can make her feel burnt out. She said she loves me and wants to keep working on the relationship and everything will be better for us this way. But I kind of feel icky about this. I feel like our relationship is dying. Everything changed so fast, and she doesn't even say I love you back when I say it. I feel like there's a distance between us all the time. I got a house and I'm moving out tomorrow. I canceled my plans to propose, and I'm ready to take it slow like she wants to. I feel like this can break us though. Can our relationship survive this? Why can this happen? What's the outlook? You were absent for a month, which could have triggered some abandonment wounds and left her feeling like she needs to focus on being there for herself. It isn't your fault. It sounds like she's still figuring out how she feels. Give her time, treat her kindly, and have compassion. She just went through a lot. OP. That's another possibility. The month of me being absent coincided with the start of her internship, during which she was extremely busy, would never eat, even had a patient die in her care. It seems to me her affection and sweetness is coming back, and I hope everything stays well. Whether there's someone else or not, she's making it clear she doesn't want to be with you. She's just trying to be nice about it by saying you can still work it out. Take the hint. Move out and move on. It sucks for a 2-year relationship to end, but life goes on, and I promise you will meet someone else even better at some point. It's better to end things in 2 years instead of being in an unhappy relationship for 10 years. You're in a relationship for 2 years. You go away for a month of military training. After 4 days of your absence, she realizes she's been making a mistake with you for the past 2 years and wants to revert to the early stages of dating. While you're going through what I'm assuming is stressful training, the communication slows to a trickle. My friend, this is a tale as old as time. I'm a senior non-commissioned officer in the US Army, and I'm here to tell you there's a significant likelihood Jody got your girl. Who's Jody? Jody is the person who messes around with your significant other while you're gone. Jody's gender is irrelevant. Sometimes Jody has been waiting for the opportunity to pounce, and sometimes your significant other has been waiting for an opportunity to open the door for Jody. Many soldiers get the Dear John letter while they're in initial training or deployed away from home, and Jody is often a catalyst in the significant other's decision to end things. It could be worse. Sometimes your significant other empties your bank account and lets Jody drive your car and use your stuff. It's entirely possible that there's nobody else, but I'll bet $1 she starts dating another person in less than 45 days. Maybe she'll tell you she doesn't want to be exclusive anymore. Maybe she won't. Update. She said, "I love you," unprompted the evening of the day that I made this post. I thought this was my go sign, and I started up a conversation about our relationship. It was a really good talk. She was honest and I could feel it. I will be honest with you too. To address the obvious thought everyone had, I thought she could have cheated as well, but nothing like that happened. She has made it clear that she didn't cheat in a respectable, clear way and tone, and I'm convinced she didn't. I trust this without any doubts now. Although all of the comments about Jody made me laugh, I needed a good laugh. This being a soft breakup was my other concern. I asked her if she considered breaking up with me, and she said the thought came into her mind, but she didn't want to as she loves me and was sure that she would love the future we will have. She didn't want a life without me. I asked if me moving out will eventually lead to a breakup, and she said she doesn't think it will, that she thinks it will only make us stronger. The problem was, as it turns out, that I went from being a happy person to someone who was worrying and depressed. She only realized this was the case when I was gone, and I wasn't around to spread negativity anymore. She said that she fell in love with me because I was happy and eccentric. She mentioned that while I was doing things that a good boyfriend would do, she felt I was doing them out of duty, and that I used to be very excited about buying her flowers. But lately, when I came home with flowers, I didn't celebrate this small occasion with her. I just gave them to her and went to bed. I admit, I have been very sulky these past few months. I was always worrying about my career, finances, and not being able to accomplish my future goals. I had already realized this while I was serving and worked through it myself. I think I'm in a better place now, and she says she saw that I am. Her solution to this was me moving out. My negative energy, I wasn't aware it was so contagious, wouldn't affect her anymore. Because it did, and she already has a lot to worry about. She needs a positive attitude to stay strong, and I was making that harder. She also realized that we were too codependent and too much in a routine. She thought me moving out would solve this. I agree. We both were very independent people at the start, but then we got lost in love. I was always waiting for her to come home, and she was always waiting for me to do anything. This ordeal made life somehow stale. She realized that because I did so much for her, she became heavily dependent on me to solve her problems, making her feel weak and incapable. Because of this reliance, she even had a hard time paying the bill, and this got to her. She missed her old self, the one with confidence and power. I realized that I lost myself too. I was a social person who commonly took the initiative to do something, with a lot of flash and crash in my life. I lost that. I lost friends, and I lost my active lifestyle. She wants to go out with her friends and not include me in everything. She wants to not worry about the things she says while with friends because I might be uncomfortable with it. She wants to sometimes take long walks alone. She doesn't want to ask me every time she wants to buy something. She doesn't want to feel guilty when her day-to-day plans don't include me. A problem some of you may have big issues with. She admitted that she received flirtatious male attention when doing her internship at school. I wasn't surprised, as she is very good looking and with a feminine personality to boot. She says she would never cheat on me and didn't want to respond to anything. Never considered anyone else but me in her life, but she liked it. She enjoyed the ego boost, and that made her feel guilty. Guilty that she could like such a thing while I was away facing hardship. I said it was normal to like attention from the opposite gender, especially when you're lonely. I appreciated that she immediately tried to shut down advances and stayed committed and loyal to me. I don't think this will be a problem, and she looked very relieved when I thought it wasn't a big deal. In the end, she said that she missed the old me, the one that was happy and excited. Look, y'all need to break up, dude. Just come on, man. Come on. This really bothers me. I'm glad you both worked it out, but I hate the way she treated you. Instead of talking to you, she became cold and distant. That's awful. Instead of being there to support your emotional issue about concerns of your life, she asked you to move out. That's awful. Instead of just saying, let's hang out without each other and with our own respective friends, she asked you to move out. The better solution is to just do those things she's bothered by. There's no reason she can't go out with her friends without you. There's no reason she can't just pay a bill. You're far too trusting, and she's out of touch with herself at best. You don't move out your long-term partner, enjoy the attention of others, and admit you want to hang out with friends without thinking about what you're saying, respecting your partner, because you want to work on your relationship. You both are just drawing out your breakup pretty clearly. She just wants to be single. I just hope she has the integrity to end things if she comes to that realization herself, instead of messing you around or becoming manipulative. OP. I can see how it's not positive, but at the moment, I think I'll ride this out. I'll be prepared if it doesn't work out, but currently we're okay and I love her. That's reason enough. People are saying that she'll cheat on me and she wants to live the single life. I don't think so. I was supposed to move out today, but she asked me to stay. Of course you're right. She didn't support me during a time where I needed support the most, but I can see her perspective. When I did go through a tough time, she was with me. She did support me then. She really made an effort, which is why I can understand she could be tired of the whole thing when I was away. If we do break up, that's fine. I'm a young man and I can handle some heartbreak if it comes my way in the future. No reason to abandon someone you just love to avoid that. If we don't, that's amazing. But I want to work on this, and as long as she does too, hopefully we'll end up building a better relationship for the both of us. Karen demanded I be fired for being polite to a homeless couple. A few years ago, around midnight, I had a guest come up to the front desk, a woman and a girl who was around 4. The woman told me there were a couple of people sleeping in the back staircase. I told her I would take care of it, and I apologized if she was inconvenienced, and she went back to her room, or so I thought. I went to the back staircase, and there on the second floor was an older homeless couple, either sleeping or napping. So despite feeling bad, I woke them up and told them that they couldn't sleep here and they would have to leave. They apologized and thanked me for not yelling at them about it, and they went on their way. I thought the issue was dealt with and went back to my duties. The rest of this I heard secondhand from my morning coworker. Apparently, the woman that told me of the homeless couple was at the top of the stairs listening and watching, and in the morning she came downstairs to complain about me. She didn't approve of the way I handled the homeless people. I told my morning coworker about what had happened so he'd know I wasn't mean or nasty or anything. So what was I supposed to do? Grab them by the ears and throw them out of the back door? Either way, she wasn't happy with the way I handled the situation, despite not giving an answer of what I should have done. And then she started adding other details onto it. She said they smelled like meds. Didn't say which ones. When I spoke to them, I didn't smell anything. She said she didn't like the way the man stared at them. If they were sleeping, how could he even have looked at them in the first place? And if he felt unsafe, why did you go near him? And then she started adding other things, not part of the homeless people. She said it was too loud by her room and she couldn't get to sleep. So coworker asked her why she didn't report it to the front desk. She didn't have an answer. No matter what my coworker said, she kept ranting and raving and demanding not only a full refund, but a free night stay and for me to be fired. Of course, none of that happened, and due to her attitude and the language she used, she was told to leave and she was put on a do not rent list. The kicker is, even after all of this, she still came back the next day and tried to rent another room, and she threw another fit when she was told that she was no longer welcome. Am I the jerk for leaving my family in squalor and going to a resort? So let's begin with this. I make decent money, but I'm in no way rich. I like to take my family on vacation and have been stymied for the last couple of years. So this summer, I decided to do something I thought was pretty great. I paid for my family to go to Disneyland. Not just my wife and kids, but also my father-in-law, mother-in-law, my wife's brother and his wife and kids. So 10 people. I also rented a McMansion with a pool and everything. I bought all the groceries and rented a truck so I could ferry the luggage, and in case of emergency, we would have a vehicle. My kids are in their teens, and my nephews are a few years younger. My immediate family did not require any help with the kids, and realistically, neither did my in-laws. So we get to the house and the problems start. The room I had picked out for my wife and I is obviously the nicest. My father-in-law and mother-in-law chose to stay in the pool house. This left 5 other bedrooms for 6 people. Brother-in-law and sister-in-law, my 2 kids, their 2 kids. Simple, right? Not so fast. Why did I get the best room? They hadn't had some nice time alone in years. Why did my kid get to pick the room with the ensuite? Why did one room have a bigger TV? Why are we having to cook some meals? Why don't we just order every meal? Goodness. I just went to my room and I went to sleep. First day, more BS. Why do we have to wait in lines? Why don't we get the tour guide that lets us skip the lines? My wife started joining in. She said we shouldn't be cooking at the house and that it wasn't fair to her and sister-in-law to be stuck with the cleaning. My kids always help. I do too. Brother-in-law doesn't lift a finger to help though. My in-laws joined the fun at the end of the day. They didn't want to wait for the Uber. Could they take the truck and meet us back at the house? My wife said to let them. I got sick of it. I ordered everyone pizza, and then while they were gorging themselves, I called an Uber and went to stay at a hotel that I'm a super shiny member of. I used my points to book a suite for the next 6 days. I texted my wife and I told her I would catch up with everyone in the morning at the park. She's mad that I left her to deal with those ungrateful, greedy people. I'm sitting in the pool enjoying a gin and tonic and writing this because I left the park after I saw the new superhero stuff at the park. Her brother and sister-in-law are now bugging her to give up the nice room since she's alone. Now she's not on their side. Too late. So, am I the jerk for leaving them to all sort out their own stuff after I went out of my way to do something nice and they crapped all over it? Edit. I'm going to get ready for the game. Thank you guys. You've given me a lot to think about. Yikes, edit. My wife went beast mode. She's spending the night with me at the hotel after the game. I'm back at the house tomorrow. My brother-in-law has been told if he looks at our room, he and his wife are going to a motel. In-laws were told to Uber wherever they wanted. We're still taking everyone out for one dinner, but all other meals not made in the house are paid for your own way. And brother-in-law is responsible for cleaning up after meals. Honestly, didn't think she had that in her. Not the jerk. This is actually hilarious. You took a vacation from your entitled relative's vacation. Well, maybe you should have warned your wife and brought her along and left the other relatives to figure things out for themselves. I can't even fathom someone sponsoring me for a free vacation like that and saying anything but, thank you so much. Let me get your suitcase for you. This is fantastic. Next year, tell them since the last vacation wasn't up to their standards, you're going to let them pay for this one and show you how it's done properly. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the in-laws? Please let us know. In-laws are to be avoided at all costs, especially when it comes to vacations. My wife expects me to buy our kids Starbucks every day. My wife and I adopted Mila, who's 10, Grace, who's 5, and Lucas, who's 4, from foster care. Grace and Lucas were in a very loving home that would have adopted them if they could. We're still in contact with their foster parents and see them every few months. Mila's home was horrible. She was the first one that came to us, and we spent nearly a month in the hospital, and she needed a feeding tube when she came home. Mila has some special needs that are a direct result of that home. A few months ago, we got a call asking if we could take a 14-year-old, Cassie, from the same home that Mila was in. Cassie's needs aren't as severe as Mila's, but between that and the fact that she's years behind in school, normal schooling would have been difficult for her. My sister was a teaching assistant for special ed at our local school district. It was so bad that she didn't even last a year there. When she heard about the girls, she said to not let them end up in special ed in our district. My wife quit her job and homeschooled Mila for the first few months, but she's not a teacher and she doesn't know how to help Mila the way she needed it. We started looking for special needs schools and found one over an hour away that we love. My wife got a job in the office there, so we got cheap tuition for Mila and eventually Cassie when she started school there. The girls are doing great at this school and we're considering moving closer to it to make life easier. The issue is my wife, Mila, and Cassie are out of the house by 6:30 every morning. Cassie is up at 5:30 and Mila is up at 6. They're all tired when it's time to go to school and work, so as a treat, they go to Starbucks every morning. Mila gets a hot chocolate, Cassie is allowed to get a small coffee, and my wife gets a coffee to help them get through the morning. They're not always the best at getting the cups out of the car by the time the younger two see it, and lately they've been throwing a temper tantrum every morning when we pass by a Starbucks. My wife thinks we should just get it for them, but I don't want to. I think it's a waste of money and they can have chocolate milk at home. Am I the jerk for not getting them Starbucks? Why can't your wife, Cassie, and Mila make their coffee and hot chocolate at home and take them in reusable cups? Then the other kids can have the same hot chocolate. Remove overpriced Starbucks from the equation. ETA. There's way too much unnecessary arguing and disrespectful communication happening in this thread. I feel my intentions are being sorely misunderstood and dissimilar comparisons are being made. I'm sorry if what I've said is offensive to anyone. Not the jerk. Kids can't always get what they want. They need to learn this quickly. Also, while I do not know your financial situation, Starbucks is expensive, and that can add up quickly between 4 kids. Oh, finally some common sense. Even more if you two buy something. Coffee can be made at home for cheap. Get a few creamers, non-dairy creamers, maybe even an appliance, whipped cream, chocolate, and caramel syrups, and voila. My wife and I were both Starbucks junkies. Multiple trips a week, and not the cheap brewed stuff usually. For Christmas 2 years ago, my wife gave me some very fancy coffee making equipment. We immediately bought an entire selection of flavored syrups, chocolate, and white chocolate sauce and caramel. I bought 2 cups of Starbucks since. It's an expensive one-time outlay. We put about $2,000 into the coffee bar at home, but at 3 cups a day, 5 days a week, and an average of $4 a cup, do the math. That's $3,100 a year in coffee. The setup would pay for itself in a year or so. In my opinion, no jerks here. What's with all these people suddenly freaking out about sugar when it's a hot chocolate and a small coffee after you've woken up at 5 a.m.? Just tell the youngest kids they can have Starbucks when they're older or when they take part in the early morning routine. They'll survive. I don't get all of you're a jerk for even looking at Starbucks. Yeah, I also don't understand all these people freaking out over hot chocolate and small coffee. What's wrong with getting them a little treat for waking up at the crack of dawn? It's really not that much sugar or that much caffeine. No, it's just a total waste of money. 5 days a week buying that kind of stuff, what's wrong with people? A lot, Karen. A lot. Am I the jerk for teaching my son to call me dad against his mother's wishes? I hooked up with a woman named Mary that I didn't know at a party in 2016. About a year ago, someone reached out to me and told me she knew Mary and her now 6-year-old son was mine. This person hadn't known my name until meeting another friend of mine, and they figured it out. Apparently, Mary had started dating someone, John, just after we hooked up, then found out she was pregnant. Mary and John got serious, got married, and John adopted my son. After I found out, I got a lawyer and filed for custody in my state. Mary and John fought me through the whole process, telling me not to break up their family. They have a younger daughter together. After lots of legal fees, I finally forced a paternity test and got every other weekend. My intent is to keep pushing until I have 50-50 custody. I looked into reversing the adoption, but it's basically impossible, so I'll probably have to wait until my son is 18. I've been having my son over for the past few months, and it's been great. He gets along great with my girlfriend, too. He understands that I'm his father, but of course he calls John dad. I'm not trying to get him to stop that because I don't want to confuse him or make him uneasy. But last weekend, I did tell him that he can call me dad too, instead of Mr. Last Name, like his mom told him to. He seemed fine with it and called me dad while he was with me. His mom found out and has been pestering me all week, saying that I'm just a donor and John is his real dad and she'll take me to court for parental alienation. The last thing she said was that I can be an uncle, but my son only has one dad. I'm ignoring most of what she said, but I'm wondering if I am the jerk for asking my son to call me dad in this situation. Edit. Some people are asking how I could gain parental rights adoption. It is possible because I did not consent to the adoption, and Mary claimed she did not know the father. The birth certificate was blank for father. John decided to adopt when my son was 1 year old, and he got married to Mary. She's going to take you to court for parental alienation? Oh, I'd love to see that one. Your Honor, this man that I hooked up with, the donor for my baby, I never told him and lied about knowing who he was so that I could have my new husband adopt him. I then fought tooth and nail to keep them from ever meeting and getting to know each other. This man actually told his son that he could call him dad, causing our son to be alienated from his adoptive father. In case my opinion is not clear, you're not the jerk, and there's no reason this kid can't have 2 dads. Not the jerk. And it's great that you clearly want to be a parent to your kid that you just found out about. I do kind of hope you've spoken with a child therapist to make sure you're handling this as best you can to help your kid understand what's happening and get him help if he needs some help processing everything. And you could always approach other terms for dad, like pop, daddy-o, or something else, and see what else you can come up with and what he's comfortable with. Plenty of kids have two dads, and I hope you can all find peace. The more love a kid has, the better. You're the jerk. The kid is 6, and you've done nothing ever to be a dad to him until now. The kid has a stable life with his mother and adoptive father. That's his home. That's the only life he's ever known. Wanting to suddenly have 50-50 custody to uproot his stability is not in his best interests. It's selfish. You want this for you, not for your kid. The kid barely knows you, you're not family to him, and to tear him away 50% of the time from the only family he's ever known is gross. OP is this kid's dad, and it's through no fault of his own that he's had no contact until now. That's on the mother. How can you say it's not in the kid's best interest to have his biological dad, who wants to be a loving and caring parent, in his life? That's crazy. Kids can adapt to having additional family members who care for them and love them. My boyfriend didn't propose to me in the agreed upon time, and I feel like I'm going crazy. I'm considering leaving him. It's been over 8 years. We started dating at 18 in college. I understood that we would have to wait to get engaged because we were so young. However, I feel that it's been too long. He says we're almost at the finish line, but I keep seeing that line being pushed further and further back. First, we said we would wait until we were financially stable. Then he wanted to go into law school after 2 years of being out of college. We always said we would be engaged when law school was over, but then the bar exam came and sidetracked that. We recently moved, and now we're waiting to see how much our old apartment charges us for damages. My deadline was the day after he graduated. I've already been waiting an extra 3 years because he chose to go to law school. We have enough money in our bank account. I get that he wants to be extremely financially stable, but it's September and I'm breaking. Every time I talk to him about it, it gets pushed further back. He says we're 2 months away, but I ran out of patience 4 months ago. It's driving me crazy, and I feel like it's ruined the idea of being engaged for me. I wanted it to be spontaneous and out of love, but I don't think that was ever actually going to happen. I don't think he's scared of marriage. He offers to marry me at a courthouse all the time. I just think he doesn't care about all of the romantic stuff, and he's just going through the motions for me. I've been pushed 4 months past my breaking point, and I don't know if I've ruined our relationship by pushing the issue. Right now, it's to the point where getting engaged will no longer make me happy. Is it over? Am I just fooling myself? Have I gone mad? Edit. I just want to say that I have never given him a deadline. The deadline was for me to leave. It was in my head. Edit 2. I can't believe I need to say this, but we have talked about a timeline for marriage a ton. We had an agreement. It wasn't set in stone, but it was discussed. No, I can't propose to him. Partly because it's not what we both want, but mostly because we share a bank account. That amount of money needs to be mutually agreed upon before it's spent. Every deadline I set for myself, that I didn't follow through on admittedly, was based on timelines he set. He agreed to get engaged after his graduation. He agreed to this before he started law school. Time passes and things change. I was understanding. Then he said it would happen by the end of summer. Now it's the end of September, and he's saying by February. This is the last time I wait. He has some reasonable points, but if it's moved again, that's it. Update. I talked to him about it. He said he was planning on proposing in the very near future. He said we have a few expenses coming up, car, apartment, etc., and he wanted to wait and see before buying a ring. I'm skeptical but hopeful. I asked him when he would propose naturally. He said February because you just can't force somebody to propose and get married to you. I just don't get it. Huh. Based on what you've written, I can't tell if you guys are just not communicating well or understanding each other, or if he's just stringing you along. If you get the idea he's stringing you along, then absolutely leave. But if not, communication issues can be resolved. The one thing I'm side-eyeing, though, is not getting engaged. Getting engaged doesn't cost money. People have long engagements all the time. He could propose now, and you could plan the wedding for a year more from now, unless you're expecting an insanely expensive ring. You want an official engagement, most likely something cute and romantic, along with the wedding including your friends and family. He says he'll just marry you at the courthouse. Being married isn't the issue perhaps, but rather what you two think should lead up to that. He seems to dread that aspect and would rather skip it all. You said in your comment that you're the breadwinner so far, and you've been supporting him, so the issue isn't necessarily financial on his end, but maybe he wants to be more established. You should talk to him about the whole ceremony aspect, because that seems to be the stone in the road. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. It has to be a mutual thing. You can't force somebody to propose to you or marry you. It just has to be a mutual thing. Yeah, it really sucks when someone keeps trying to pressure you to marry them. And what sucks even more is when you break up and they keep threatening you for stuff that you paid for, that they're demanding. Why do some people suck so much? Yowza, Reddit boy. You sound like you might need a smoothie. Wife complains I don't clean while I cook, so I proceed to sparkle the kitchen instead of making dinner. I, 33 male, often do the cooking at home, including the washing up that happens after. My wife, who's 34, does not usually cook. We established that by our second date years ago. I love her to bits, but she is a culinary disaster, and time and sweat has failed to make improvements. It's a lost battle. The sequence of dinner prep usually starts as soon as I finish work. This involves chopping meat and vegetables and rounding up anything that was previously marinated or thawed. This is immediately followed by cooking and then serving to be eaten hot. It seems logical to me that meals should be enjoyed while they are fresh, and cleaning up can wait, especially if the kitchen's not being used by anyone else. I'm also the only one who normally does the washing after everything is eaten, and I wash all the cutlery and cooking prep stuff in the same process. This is done while my wife settles our toddler into bed. I prefer this setup because I can get all the washing done in one go, and everyone can eat their meals at the same time together while it's fresh. I do not like washing the pots and pans after cooking and before eating. My wife, however, seems to get annoyed at this. Every now and then, while I'm cooking, if she walks in, she'll start complaining, making notes that I should pack this and that up, that I should clean the board while waiting for the stir-fry to finish. Sometimes there's literally no downtime for certain dishes, especially with several to serve before it gets too late for the toddler. To be clear, I certainly clean some things as I go, especially when it concerns raw meat or things that need to go back into the fridge. I'll wipe down if there's any offensive spills, but for things like chopping boards, certain empty packages or condiments, I'll leave them out on the bench until I'm done or when I'm washing up. Things that I feel don't pose risks or have any urgency to be put away other than making the kitchen look tidy during cooking. Happy to be proven wrong. Anyway, one day, for whatever reason, my wife got real snarky at me because I left the chopping board out next to the pans, saying it's not hard to clean as I cook. Whatever, fine. So for the next meal, I made sure to clean everything I touched as I started my meal prep. I had already made sure the little one had her dinner, so there's no harm in drawing this out. Need to open that can of pasta sauce? Better wash down the can opener and dry it before we start. Gotta wipe down the whole kitchen top too. Oops, dropped a garlic clove. I'd better give the whole kitchen floor a good scrub. Is that a bit of charred residue on the stove? Okay, better degrease the entire area. You get my drift. Wife has put the little one to sleep by now, so 3 hours later the kitchen is sparkling, literally. Pasta has not entered water and the sauce materials have not touched the pan. Wife asks, where's dinner? I tell her I haven't started cooking because I still need to clean the fridge. There were some stains under the tomato tray. She went back to bed. I still cooked and packed her lunch. I have not been harassed since. Edit. There's no expectation for my wife to clean. I've made it clear that I'm happy to do it as I clean up messes I make. We split our duties, so she spends that time on other things that need attention around the house. There's two types of people in this world. Those who clean the pots and pans as they're cooking, and those who wait after they eat to do it. Well, actually, I kind of do half and half. Like, I clean half the stuff as I'm cooking and when I finish, and then I wait for the bigger things until after I eat. Well, you're just weird. Would I be the jerk for suing my sister over something that her daughter did? I, female 43, have a daughter who's 16. My sister, who's 40, has a daughter who's 15, and always had the idea of having both our daughters be the best of friends. She would only schedule playdates with my daughter and not any of her daughter's school friends. It kept going on, and her daughter began to resent mine. She would start off by stealing things here and there, and went on by lying about her. My sister coddled her daughter her entire life and had one of those weird relationships with her like the ones on TV. She had a real-life brat as her daughter, but everyone in our extended family would brush it off as fiery personality. Now on to what happened yesterday. My daughter won a school raffle and got the grand prize, which was a MacBook. My daughter got praise from nearly everyone. Everyone except my sister, who I didn't mind about. On my dad's 78th birthday, I sent out invitations to everyone and said gifts were optional as I had already bought him quite a lot of gifts. My sister and her daughter show up with this juice maker and some fruits, and they rush to my kitchen. While everyone was getting settled in, my daughter yells from her bedroom. I got scared and ran upstairs to see what was going on, and I saw my niece with her juice maker and my daughter's laptop covered in a smoothie. I yelled for my sister to come upstairs, and she just comes out of the bathroom next to my daughter's room. She said it's no big deal and that computers were probably waterproof. It isn't. I said, what was that smoothie doing out of the kitchen, and why didn't my sister use the downstairs bathroom since upstairs is off limits? I told her that she would be paying for the repairs, but she just brushed it off and said it was fine and family doesn't work like that. She headed downstairs, but I called the police and her daughter got kicked out. The rest of the party was awkward and tense. Later on, I got texts from everyone that saw what happened asking for me to just drop it. Some even called me entitled. I was thinking on serving her with court papers. Would I be the jerk? Update. It was intentional. While I was away, I took the computer to a repair shop. I asked if they could fix the water damage. They said yes, but it's not easy. While they were trying to fix the computer, they opened the back and saw there were multiple punctures in the wires and other delicate parts. I've decided to file a lawsuit. What the extended family thinks of me is irrelevant because my sister allowed her daughter to destroy it on purpose. I'm getting in touch with a lawyer. Not the jerk to expect sister and niece to pay for damages. Go no contact until they do, and even after, go low contact. Who the heck brings a juicer upstairs and sets it on a brand new computer? This was absolutely planned and done deliberately to stick it to your daughter. Your sister's excuses are laughable. Definitely take her to small claims court to pay for the cleaning and any repairs to refurbish the computer. Not the jerk. You'll have my job? Okay, Karen, this will be interesting. So I'm out shopping for a few things. Bread, milk, bin bags, etc. I remember that I need some ham, so I go to the cooked meats aisle and look for something tempting. As I'm searching for something nice, I hear a voice behind me saying, "Excuse me," in a not at all polite manner. I look over my shoulder and see the local Karen. I acknowledge her and take 2 steps to the side, but don't turn around. I feel a tap on my shoulder and the same non-too-polite voice saying, "Excuse me, I'm talking to you. Don't ignore me." I turn around and open my mouth to ask what she wants and why she's being rude. But before I can speak, she starts going off on me for being a lazy member of staff and ignoring her. I say, "If you think I work here, you're wrong. I don't." And she says, "You're just being lazy. I'll have your job." "Really?" I say, badly feigning surprise. "You'll have my job?" "Yes, I will," she says, with a strange mixture of superiority, righteousness, and stupidity. "Okay, suit yourself. You can have it." I waved my hands around in strange shapes and announced, "You are now officially a member of staff." It is said that a picture can speak 1,000 words, but the look on her face at this point just said, "What the heck?" "But I want you to get these things for me. I want," she starts. "Don't ask me. I'm a customer. You should ask a colleague since you work here. In fact, you can help me with what I need." "What? But I don't work here," she says. "Yes, you do. You said you'd have my job and I gave it to you. Now buzz off and leave me alone." She stomps off, but that wasn't the end of it. Another customer, who's clearly seen the interaction, stopped her halfway up the aisle and said, loudly enough for me to hear, "Oh, finally someone who works here. Can you get that heavy thing off the top shelf?" "Oh, buzz off," she said, and walked, presumably, out of the shop. Other customer, "You absolute legend." Entitled sister thinks she deserves my house because she has 3 kids. So my grandfather was a pretty wealthy man, and because of it, he and my mother had a rocky relationship and haven't spoken in over 5 years. My 2 sisters turned out just like my mother, a high sense of entitlement. Believe the world owes them everything, and my grandfather's money didn't help this. They expected my grandfather to pay for a lavish lifestyle. Eventually, he ended up cutting them off, which caused them to stop speaking to him. They even tried pressuring me to do the same. I refused. Me and my grandfather were really close. I spent a lot of time at the house. It was one of my favorite places in the world, and I am absolutely thrilled he left it to me. My grandfather was my best friend. He was the first person I came out to when I was 15, and his reaction is still my favorite. But he sadly passed away a few months ago. This wasn't a surprise by any means, as he had been battling cancer for years. Well, my grandfather ended up leaving everything to me and 2 of my cousins he was also close with. I got the family home, which is a beautiful 4-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom house with a pool and a hot tub. I was also left a good chunk of money, which will really help with student loans. One cousin got my grandfather's antique car collection. Not sure if it can really be called a collection, as there are only 3, but my grandfather called it that, so that's what I'm going with. The other cousin got my grandfather's painting collection, which was pretty big and has a few pretty expensive paintings in it. But seeing as she is an artist herself, I doubt she will sell them. I think she actually wants to donate a few of the more well-known ones to our local museum. My mother and sisters got nothing. Well, as you can likely guess, they freaked out. There wasn't much they could do about my cousin as they didn't really speak to my family for other reasons, but with me, they flipped out. My mom was mad because this was her family home and she thinks she deserves it. My sister thinks I should give it to her because she's married and has 3 kids and she needs it more. She already has a nice house, by the way. This one is just more expensive. I do not want to give the house to her. My grandfather wanted me to have it. That's gotta mean something, right? And just because I do not have a family right now doesn't mean I won't in the future. Me and my boyfriend have even talked about it multiple times. Like I said, this place means a lot to me and I want to keep it. My other sister has no interest in the house, she just wants some of the money I got. She recently got out of prison and is pretty much broke. I wouldn't have had a problem giving her some of the money if it weren't for the fact that before going to prison, she stole a lot of money from me and many other family members, including my grandfather. I'd think about getting some sort of a restraining order against them. Never underestimate the power of a Karen. Am I the jerk for not letting my niece use her iPad during our wedding? My wife and I got married September 4th, and this drama is still going on. We paid a lot of money for a videographer to capture our ceremony. We told everyone at the rehearsal dinner we would be having everyone turn their devices off for the ceremony just so that there wouldn't be any distractions. My brother pulled me aside later on to tell me that his daughter, who's 4, would need to have her iPad to get through the ceremony. Otherwise, she would be really noisy and wouldn't sit still and might ruin the day for us. I told him no, she wouldn't be using it because there's a chance she may turn the volume on or something, and I really don't want to take that risk. I thought that was the end of it, but the next day, my brother, who is also my best man, came to me and said that his daughter was having a hard time today and that she would need her iPad. I again told him no. He said that if she didn't have it, she would make a fuss, and the missus wouldn't want that ruining her big day, now would she? And that kind of upset me. Because yeah, it's her day, but it's also mine. I'm marrying the woman I love, and we both made this no devices decision together. I told him if he couldn't respect it, then his daughter could wait outside with either him or his wife, but her iPad wouldn't be in there. He was annoyed, but we left it at that. And then it happens. Middle of the ceremony, we hear, "We finally found the perfect house!" And then some fumbling as my sister-in-law is trying to get the iPad to shut off, and my niece starts to whine. Some ad started playing as my niece was playing a game. My wife and I were annoyed, but we, along with everyone else, laughed it off and continued on. During the reception, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law ran up to us, saying they didn't know the volume was up so loud, and they had my niece apologize for it. My wife said it's done and over with, and it was rude of you to do. My bro said it wasn't fair, so I said that it wasn't fair sister-in-law allowed it, seeing as we already talked about it, and that going against what we had already asked of them and the iPad was a major jerk move, and that them not apologizing but having their daughter make a big show of doing so was sending the wrong message, seeing as she's 4 and she doesn't even understand, and that it was them who allowed it to happen. My brother said that it wasn't that deep and that I'm being ridiculous. Then the rest of the reception was kind of awkward, even during the best man speech. He tried to make a joke. "Yeah, that was my daughter's iPad making the noise. She likes to be a rule breaker." And it just made my wife and I angry. I've said very few things to him since this happened. My parents are starting to think I'm the jerk for not just moving on and for waiting for him to apologize. Am I the jerk? Edit. I keep seeing this come up about how if we didn't want this to happen, then we should have had a child-free wedding. We essentially did in the fact that we told everyone, hey, people will be drinking, so if you want to leave your kids at home, that's fine with us. And most people did. My niece came and 4 other kids, one being only 7 months old, and then a 5, a 7, and a 12-year-old. It also helps that naturally, both sides of the family are late-night partiers, so to leave the kids home wasn't a huge offense. And for those asking what we would have done had she instead started fussing and crying, that's fine with us. We would have rather had that instead of a 30-second YouTube ad going on and on, then an awkward scramble to get it turned off, which threw off the flow of our vows. If she started fussing, that's something we could have laughed about, and her mom would have taken her outside. Instead, we had all the guests turning to look at them in a very awkward display of, you were asked to do one thing. And yes, we still laughed, but for us, it wasn't the same. It really wasn't. As for offering up other solutions for my brother and sister-in-law to use to entertain their daughter, respectfully, that's not my job. I'm not her parent. We told them no devices. We had several options, as people have mentioned, and we are not her parents, so it wasn't on us to offer up alternative suggestions, seeing as we were a little more preoccupied with getting everything in order to be married. Maybe I shouldn't be so bothered by this, but I am, because it was the lack of courtesy and apology on my brother and sister-in-law's behalf. My niece apologizing doesn't really mean anything because she doesn't understand what she did. Her mom handed her the iPad. My niece is 4 and doesn't understand that what happened was rude. She doesn't grasp that yet. It should have been on my brother and sister-in-law to apologize. Am I the jerk for calling my brother-in-law lazy in front of everyone? Last weekend, I invited my husband's 2 brothers and their wives to stay over the weekend and have a birthday party for my husband. My husband's youngest brother arrived on Friday night with his wife and stayed in our guest bedroom, while the eldest brother offered to smoke some pork overnight and bring it to the party. The poor guy was up all night cooking it, and I told him I didn't want him to lose out on his sleep over it, but he insisted. So, on Saturday, I get up early and I'm cooking and baking all day, and my husband, his brother's wives, and his eldest brother are all helping out. Everyone is busting their tails, except the youngest. He's sitting down in the living room playing video games for hours without a single offer to help. Even the few times I hinted to him that I needed help, he came up with some BS excuse why he wasn't going to be able to help out. Fast forward to the party. Everything came out great. All the food was good and everyone was enjoying themselves. And the jerk brother makes a joke about my cooking to everyone at the party. At this point, I had had enough of him, so I told him, "You're one to talk. Everyone helped with the cooking and to put this party together except for you. You're a lazy and entitled parasite." Now, I know that my retort wasn't the most diplomatic and that I shouldn't have embarrassed him in front of everyone. And my husband got mad at me and said that I was a jerk for calling him out in front of everyone and that I needed to apologize to his brother. I told him I don't owe him an apology at all. Am I the jerk? I feel like one after the fact. I know I should have kept my mouth shut, but I still don't think I should apologize to him. Edit. For those who say that I shouldn't have expected people to help out, I will add that it's an unwritten family rule that when a family member invites others for a dinner or a party, everyone is expected to contribute, either by helping out or bringing a dish. It's always been like that for as long as my husband can remember, and I've adapted to their custom. Edit 2. My brother-in-law always never contributes. Not just at family gatherings, but with anything. My husband's family is very close-knit. Actually, everyone is awesome but him, and they're always helping each other out. He only asks for help, but never helps anyone. In my husband's own words, he always finds a way to worm himself out of helping. Edit 3. My brother-in-law said in front of everyone that my food tasted like prison food. For those wondering if in fact the food tasted bad, it didn't. It tasted delicious. Everyone was complimenting it, and some requested the recipes for some of the dishes, which is what prompted him to make that unsavory joke. He also didn't have a problem with the food, as he had already had 2 servings and was on his way for his 3rd before insulting it. Edit 4. Everyone, even his wife, started asking him for help, and he would still not help out. I feel bad for his wife because it's not just at gatherings, it's with everything. She does everything around the house, from cooking to fixing stuff that gets broken to doing all the errands, and all he does is play video games and watch TV. He's a complete deadbeat. I don't know how she puts up with it. She's got the patience of a saint. Edit 5. Some commenters suggesting putting away our console. The problem is that he has his own and takes it wherever he goes. This time was no exception. As soon as he got up, he connected his console and started playing. Edit 6. Some people have asked why my husband didn't say anything to my brother-in-law first. He didn't have time. As soon as my brother-in-law insulted my food, I snapped back with my insult. I don't know what happened after that because I was seeing red and left the room and went for a walk to calm myself down. I knew if I stayed, I would say a few more choice words to him and would have made things worse. They may have scolded him, I don't know. By the way, thank you for all of your comments, even those that say I'm the jerk. It's very enlightening to see people's opinion of this situation and to make me aware where I went too far. I don't think you went too far. If homeboy doesn't want you calling him a parasite, maybe he should stop being one. Sister copied my 5th grade book report. Evil mama bear lets her get away with it. This happened when I was 13 and in middle school. My sister was 10 and in 5th grade at the time. 3 years earlier, when I was in the 5th grade, I did a book report on a light novel I don't really remember, and I got a B+ on the book report. My dad had a habit of filing all the returned school assignments of myself and my sister, and he cataloged them by day, month, year, and topic. I thought his doing so was a bit overzealous, but I didn't really dwell on it. Fast forward 3 years, and one day I noticed my sister came home from school whining about having to do a boring book report. I told her I did a few of them for school in her grade, and they're really not so hard. Just pick a book, read it, and then write about it. Then I brought up the name of the book I'd done a report on at the time and said it might be a good choice for her as it was an easy novel to read with big fonts printed on the pages. Sis had 2 weeks to do the book report, but I never once saw her reading any book at all during that time, and I repeatedly reminded her. She'd just brush me off and say, "I got this." Then one day, my sister comes home all proud of herself that she got a B on her book report, which was odd to me since she really didn't read anything as far as I'd known. Plus, she didn't really care to apply herself. I knew she had the smarts, just not the drive. So out of curiosity, I picked up the report and started to read it. And to my shock, it was just like the one I'd written 3 years earlier. She didn't even change the title. I was furious and called her out for copying my work. Sister just ran into Mom's arms crying. Me, "She copied my old book report. She doesn't deserve this grade." Mom, "No, she didn't. You are mistaken. My little princess wrote this all by herself. She earned that B." Me, "Fine then. I'll just talk to Dad when he gets home and we'll see who's right." "Don't you talk back to me, young man. Go to your room." Me, "With pleasure." This was before I got my Nokia cell phone, so as I was walking to my room, I sneakily grabbed the cordless phone from its charger and called my dad from upstairs. He was upset and agreed to look at his records when he got home. Surprise, surprise, when he opened up the file cabinet that had my elementary schoolwork in it, it looked like it had been gone through. We found the original book report pretty easily. It had been sloppily shoved back into the file and was crudely folded in half. We read the title, and sure enough, it was the same. We came out of the office, and my dad asked to see my sister's book report. Mom stood her ground and said that her little princess didn't do anything, but Dad was adamant. Mom tried to double down, but Dad told her if she was so confident Sister didn't copy my work, then to let him read it. So Mom finally handed in the book report without even looking at him, and Dad proceeded to compare the two. He got no further than reading the titles of both before Sister started bawling and confessing what she had done. Mom came flying to her aid to hug and kiss her, then chastised us for making her cry. Dad said she ripped off my schoolwork, and if the school found out, she'd have her grade revoked and would likely be punished, which made Sister cry harder. Sister tearfully confessed that a few days earlier she went into Dad's office and looked through my old schoolwork files and found the book report. Then she just handwrote her own version of it that was almost identical and put the original back in the cabinet. After confessing, Sister then ran to my dad and latched onto him while crying her eyes out and saying she'd never do it again. I guess my sister's tears made my dad sympathetic because he said that he wouldn't tell the school that she had cheated, but she was still grounded for doing it, and he expected better from her from then on. I was mad, but my dad told me there was no use since Sister had already been graded on the report and no one noticed. This just made Mom give me an evil smirk, like she was saying, "Ha! I win," because she never enforced Sister's groundings while Dad wasn't home. Then Dad took me upstairs and assured me from now on he'd make sure this didn't happen again by keeping better control of his files. Sister didn't get off completely scot-free though. That Sunday, Dad took me out for ice cream and a trip to the mall, but not her. Sister was screaming and begging to come with us, but Dad told her she didn't deserve it for copying my book report. So in essence, it was my grade and not hers, so I'd be getting the ice cream. That made Mom say she'd go out and buy her a tub of whatever ice cream she wanted, but Sister just cried it was not the same and then ran to her room to scream and pout. That was the best ice cream I'd gotten all year. The following week, my dad got some brand new file cabinets with better locks on them, so nobody could get into them anymore but him. And for those who may be wondering why the teacher didn't notice the book report was the same, my old teacher I had back in 5th grade moved on to another school by the time I was in 6th grade, and since it was elementary, it wouldn't surprise me if copied book reports slipped through the cracks there on many occasions. There are a lot of students to keep track of after all. I suggested to my friend that she should shave. Now she won't talk to me. I'm 29, female. My friend, let's call her Emily, she's 32, is an amazing person. She's fun, adventurous, intelligent, super active, a great cook, outgoing, and just a great girl to be around. A few years ago, she decided not to shave anymore. Legs, armpits, other areas, out of protest to the system, resulting in her having very long dark hair everywhere. A few days ago, we were having a beer, and she told me how sad her dating life was, that she kept meeting guys and having very fun dates, but never got a call back, or when she tried asking for a second or third date, got rejected in a very generic manner. Now after telling her, "You're so gorgeous and wonderful, the right man will come along, don't worry," multiple times, I decided to go out on a limb and said something along the lines of, "I know this is a very superficial thing to say, but do you think it might help a little if you would shave?" She was taken aback and told me she was disappointed I would suggest she change her appearance for them, and that I was only adding to her suppression. I immediately apologized, but the evening was pretty much ruined. I texted her the next day, apologizing again for hurting her feelings, but she hasn't replied. I really did not want to hurt her feelings, but I also don't quite see how my comment was that bad, so I'm not sure how to phrase my apology. So I decided to take it here and ask people how big of a jerk I am. She has the right to not shave, and the guys she dates have the right to not like it. People are attracted to what they're attracted to. That's just reality. If she wants a man who doesn't mind this, that will be a much smaller percentage of the male dating pool, and it will be more difficult for her to find a partner. If she was asking for your advice and you were trying to help her, then not the jerk. Especially because you're likely right, and the hair is the reason that the men are not staying. I think it's silly that she's mad at you just for stating the obvious truth. Edit. After thinking about this more, I'm thinking that yes, the hair is probably the main issue, but the fact that she has it probably really is a symptom of her personality and outlook on life and general opinions, and those things are probably the even bigger reasons the guys aren't sticking around. You're the jerk. Not shaving is a value statement. She's looking for a partner in life that has the same values. By telling her to shave, you are telling her to change her values just to get a man. Instead of saying, "Don't worry, you'll find the right man," why not say, "It's better that these wrong men are screened out than to be with one of them that doesn't value the same things you do." Now that would be miserable compromising your values. Being single is not the end of the world. You're the jerk. I also refuse to shave and have dealt with so many jerks who are not okay with it. If he can have long hair under his arms, then why can't I? It's obviously just not fair, and people like your friend and I are brave enough to challenge the status quo. You're a total jerk for telling her to change who she is for them, and you are part of what's wrong with modern society. Not the jerk. Your friend is obviously one of those people who can't accept reality and gets mad when confronted with it. She sounds really toxic, bitter, and hostile. Life tip: don't keep people like this in your life. Their problems are never going to be solved, and they will always take it out on the people who are trying to help them. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for weaponizing my sister's poverty during a family dinner? Background: I've always been ambitious and started a bakery pretty young. I was able to do it through a family loan, which I'm grateful for, and a lot of grit and insane hours. The dedication led me to miss out on a lot of things, and while I'm incredibly proud to have built something that's turned into a super popular spot in my neighborhood, I've definitely missed out on a few things. One of which is that I'm 35 and single and childless. Although I have no regrets, I do want to find love. This is a topic of frequent discussion during family dinners with my parents and sister. It's not an unwelcome discussion, and my parents don't nag. They just ask normal things like, "How was that coffee date last week?" Or, "Did you like so-and-so?" And if things don't work out, they don't say anything much. Normally, it's not a sad discussion, but this week I was sharing a bigger than normal disappointment in a recent failed date. We had gone out a few times, and I thought it would turn into something, but our schedules were just incompatible. After hearing this, my sister piped up and said she wasn't surprised because I had a negative and unfeminine aura that turns away men. My parents tried to shut her up, but she kept going on and on about how men would find my energy aggressive because I set too many boundaries. She ended with saying that I should try manifesting a positive love story, and that by going into relationships with negativity, I was manifesting failure. I was honestly so mad at this point that I just blurted out, "Well, maybe if you manifested a job, you wouldn't be fighting with Tom," her kid's father, over child support payments. She has 2 kids with Tom, split 50-50 custody, and she tries to live off her child support payments by staying with my parents. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with that, except she always complains about not having nice things, like she wants a Chanel bag and was jealous her friend got one for her anniversary. And she refuses to work. My dad offered her an admin job at his company, but she hated sitting for so long. She immediately started crying at the table, causing us to cut dinner short. My parents are trying to not take sides, but have recently asked me to apologize because my sister has been making social media posts about me, weaponizing her poverty, and being a bully. By the way, to call herself poor is honestly a slap in the face to people who are actually poor. She lives in a gated community in my parents' home. She refuses to come to my mom's birthday party next week if I don't say sorry. I personally feel like she deserved it, but I can tell my mom's upset. By the way, the boundaries my sister says that result in me manifesting negativity are things like me turning down a date 4th of July weekend because I own a bakery and it's a huge weekend for my business, requiring me to be all hands on deck pumping out pies and pastries. Not the jerk. Your sister seems jealous. I'd speculate because you exerted yourself to make your business successful and consequently are able to be financially independent, whereas she is wholly financially reliant on your parents and her ex. You didn't weaponize her poverty, you observed it. Are there gentler ways to point out that she isn't qualified to be giving you life advice? Yes, but given that her criticism of you was neither requested nor constructive, she has no right to expect you to be protective of her feelings in that moment. I don't think you owe her an apology. If someone uses the word manifest, I automatically think they're the jerk. Not the jerk. I would like to suggest you think about one thing though. You write that she has 2 kids with Tom, split 50-50 custody, and tries to live off her child support payments by staying with your parents. Honestly, there is nothing wrong with that. Respectfully, yes, there is something wrong with that. Child support is meant to support the kids, not the ex. Your sister is being unfair to the kids if she's using their money to support her own needs. She needs to get a job, as grown-ups do. I'm a full-time government worker and so is my spouse. We go to the food bank and we can absolutely not afford to have any kids. We share a tiny, overpriced studio apartment to be in the area where we can get job experience for our resumes. Forget a Chanel bag. I stress about car insurance. Yes, you're right. Your sister calling herself poor is a total slap in the face to people like myself. Not the jerk. You need to get on her social media and reply that since she refuses to work at all because she hates sitting for so long and that she can go forget herself. Your parents are awful for even asking you to apologize. They're enabling her, and they aren't doing her any favors in the long run. What happens when they pass on and can't support her? Your parents need to be okay with her not coming to stuff and to appear unbothered, or this emotional blackmail will continue. Do not apologize to her. Am I overreacting breaking up with my boyfriend because of his mom? My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years long distance. We met while we were both on vacation. In that time, I've met his family, but only through Zoom. We couldn't meet in person due to the intensive degree program I was doing. So in the last 2 years, my boyfriend has been traveling to see me every 2 months. Now that I'm done with my program, I can pretty much work anywhere, and since I work from home, I thought I would move into my own place in the city my boyfriend lives in and continue to explore our relationship. I went to look at apartments and then went to meet his family in person for the first time and have dinner. Everything was going well. I met his parents, his brothers, and their spouses. His mom was very pleasant until dinner started. His oldest brother's wife had made an appetizer and served it. It was really good, but their mom put the appetizer in her mouth, made a noise, and then made it seem like she had to force herself to eat it. She said something like, "That's a different taste," and made a disgusted face. There was nothing wrong with the appetizer. She then went to the kitchen and came out with the same appetizer and said, "It's good I made the same one just in case." I expected the daughter-in-law to say something, but she just kept quiet. No one said a word, and the conversations continued like it was normal. The mom, with the daughter-in-law and the other spouses, then helped take away our plates that still had the first appetizer on them, served hers on new plates, and told us all to eat. It was the same appetizer. There was no difference. In fact, I preferred the daughter-in-law's because hers had more vanilla. I was astounded that she did this. Dinner continued, and it was all made by the mom. She kept asking how the food was and made passive-aggressive comments about certain dishes that were made before by the other daughter-in-laws. I didn't say anything because I was shocked, but after we left dinner, I asked my boyfriend what happened. He said his mom is really passionate about her cooking and doesn't like anyone to outdo her. I said, "So this happens at every family dinner?" And he said yes. If someone had made a dish before or they make one at dinner, his mom tries to outdo them. He said his brother's wives don't take it personally because they know how she is and that it's really coming from a place of love. I'm sorry, but what I saw is not from a place of love, and the daughter-in-law seemed like she was going to cry. My boyfriend finally said she's just territorial about her cooking, and other than that, she's very normal. I finally asked him, when did this behavior start? And he said when his eldest brother first brought a serious girlfriend home. His eldest brother is 8 years older than him, so I asked from the time they were dating up to now, did all your brother's partners go through this? And he said yes. I said, do you think your mom's behavior is bad? And he got a little offended and said, no, I just think she's passionate about making good food. I've been thinking on it, replaying the dinner and comments over and over in my head, and there's no way I can sign myself up for this kind of life. My boyfriend and I are starting to talk about marriage and the future and kids, and I'm very nervous now. His brother's wives have endured this mistreatment over their cooking since the start of their relationships with their spouse's mother, and no one says a thing. Not them, not their husbands, not his dad, and not my boyfriend. How is this okay? How can I sign up for this level of insult every time there's a family dinner? If my boyfriend and I reach that stage, can I never cook anything? Will she always try to upstage me? Will she make comments about my cooking? I don't know if I can set myself up to walk into a toxic family situation like this. I'd rather leave. I honestly am really considering breaking up with him because of this. Edit. I made this post to vent. I didn't want to tell my sisters or my BFF about this because this could be an issue I get over with my boyfriend, but family doesn't forget. Finding just no mother-in-law doesn't help. Anyway, I asked my boyfriend if he could reach out to his brother's wives and ask if I could contact them for lunch. I didn't want to overstep. If they agree to this lunch, I'm writing down a few questions I'm going to ask. After lunch, I plan to have a talk with my boyfriend, and then I'll go from there. For the people asking why I'm willing to throw away a relationship where my boyfriend clearly has put in a lot of effort to see and be with me, the answer is that I'm thinking about the rest of my life here. I'm in my early 20s, and if we get married and have kids, if his mom is actually going to be like this, or worse, that's decades of drama and passive aggressiveness I would rather not deal with or have instilled in my future kids. I'm not doing that. If it's a choice between being with him and dealing with what I saw at dinner on a regular basis or being alone, I choose being alone. I'm going to communicate. That's one thing I should have done immediately. I'm going to openly express how I feel at every step and tell him why I'm doing it. I'll go from there based on what I can see to make a decision. Your biggest problem is that your boyfriend doesn't see anything wrong with her behavior. You're getting a taste of how she'll treat you, and rest assured he won't do anything about it. They've all enabled her rude behavior. She's a bully. Don't sign up for this. You'll be fighting a losing battle, trying to get him to stand up for you. And if you stand up for yourself, he'll blame you for causing problems in the family. You'll be the villain. End it now. She can't make comments about anyone's cooking if they refuse to cook. I don't understand why any of them are still trying to cook anything. That's just nuts. It's like the saying goes, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I would simply not do it. If it's a family get-together, I'd just let mother-in-law cook everything and I'd sit on my butt and have a nice glass of wine while she's working in the kitchen. I would not put myself in any kind of situation where I'd be expected to cook. No hosting dinners at my own house if mother-in-law is going to be there. If I wanted to host the in-laws, I'd take them to a restaurant. I would simply not ever cook if she was going to be eating the food. But to answer your question, I would not be anxious to sign myself up for a toxic bunch of in-laws either. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. And the fact that your boyfriend defends his mother's behavior, red flag. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for breaking up with her boyfriend over this or not? Please let us know. If you love and respect your partner, you cannot allow your family members to treat them like this. If only more people could understand that and grow a spine. Am I the jerk for refusing to dine out with my husband's best friend? My husband has a best friend named John that he's known since college. I really like John, but it's worth mentioning that John grew up very differently from both me and my husband, and that he comes from a wealthy family who supported him financially until he graduated from college and got his first job working for a major bank. He doesn't know what it's like to be poor or work a lower-paying service job and have to make ends meet because he never had to. I don't think it makes him a bad person, just out of touch with reality. This leads me to this. One thing about John is that I absolutely hate going out to eat with him. He's so rude to servers and will often find reasons to not tip them. He has a habit of trying to order off menu or adding so many modifications to a dish that it's no longer recognizable and will get angry if it's even a little bit wrong. He doesn't have any allergies or intolerances. Dining with him can be embarrassing and mentally exhausting. Last night was the last straw for me. The three of us and another couple decided to try a newer restaurant in our city. After being seated, John seemed to be on his best behavior. No complicated drinks or food orders. In fact, he got a glass of wine and only made 2 modifications to his entree. The only negative was that our server seemed to be in the weeds because of how busy the restaurant was, but she was pleasant and you could tell she was trying her best to keep us happy, which is all that should matter. John got upset because she wasn't refilling his water as soon as he finished it. His second glass of wine took a while, and our entrees took about half an hour to get out. All the while, he's talking about how this was going to be reflected on his tip. I was annoyed. And then when our entrees did come out, one of his mods didn't come out right, and he went ballistic on the server, started calling her names, etc. I've never seen him get that angry with the server before. Usually he's just passive-aggressive. In response, I lost it on him and told him that he was overreacting to such a small slight and that it probably wasn't even her fault. If he had such an issue, then he needed to speak to a manager and not yell at her about it. His meal was fixed soon after, and the rest of the night went on smoothly. Of course, John left no tip, so I doubled mine to make up for it. In the parking lot, I told him that I would never go out to eat with him again if he was going to continue to act so entitled to restaurant workers. I added that he needed to humble himself and not act like he's above anyone who doesn't work a white-collar job, because not all of us were born into money and left without saying goodbye. On the car ride home, my husband told me my comments to John were inappropriate and that I was a jerk to him because he had every right to be mad. I replied that I had the right to not want to eat with people who behave like he does because it's exhausting. Good for you. You stood up for her when she likely would have lost her job if she had stood up for herself. As for your husband, he thinks John had the right to treat the server like dirt and go ballistic on her? He's wrong. And please don't blame John's privilege for his terrible behavior. Blame John, pure and simple. The issue is John's character, not his wealth. There are plenty of people from all walks of life who treat people in service jobs respectfully, and unfortunately a few who don't. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Forget your husband. When someone like that is part of your dinner party and it impacts your experience, they brought you into their tantrum. You can tell the character of a person by how they treat servers and how they hold money over someone's head. Maybe your husband felt too seen since he seems to be fine with the belittling going on. Not the jerk, but you gotta wonder about your husband who thinks John's behavior is okay. If you do go out to eat again, let your husband know that for every time John is rude to the waitstaff, you expect hubby to pony up an additional percentage to the tip and keep a tally. Maybe then he'll take notice. Am I the jerk for telling my friend her baby is the reason no one wants her around? I'm female, 24. My friend Anna, who's also 24, had a baby around 6 months ago. Our friend group is otherwise childless. All of us used to hang out a lot before the baby was born. Baby changed dynamics because Anna wanted to bring the baby everywhere with her as it's a baby. We tried to plan things around baby to include Anna, but it always ended up badly. We shouldn't drink because Anna can't drink. We shouldn't be loud because baby needs to sleep. Icing on the cake is her baby is extremely fussy and cries all the time. It was just a downer for the rest of us, so we started hanging out without Anna and her baby. Last weekend, all of us went on a staycation. We had a great time and posted photos and videos on Instagram. Anna saw these and called me to ask why I didn't invite her. I tried telling her it was a last-minute plan and we could only find a child-free resort so as to not hurt her feelings. She called my bluff, sending me pics some random family had posted with their kids at the resort. She kept forcing me, and I told her we did not want to hang out with her baby. She asked, how can I say that about her baby? I asked her to leave it at that, but she wouldn't. I finally told her it's a baby, and we are all young. We don't want to live our life around a baby she chose to have, that we get to do adult stuff and party all we want to. Her baby is the only reason she wasn't invited. If she left baby at home, she can come too. She got upset and called me a jerk. She also sent a text in the group chat saying she's disappointed in all of us for excluding her because she's a mom. Half our friend group thinks I should not have told her the real reason and they're mad at me. The other half thinks she's unreasonable. Am I the jerk for telling her the truth? She refuses to leave the baby with her boyfriend or babysitter. Even when we say an event is for adults, like a dinner we had a few weeks ago, she still brought her baby. Baby cried throughout the night, earning us glares, and we had to leave early. Not the jerk. You tried to let her down easy, and she kept on asking. Her life is different, and she probably just needs to find a different group of friends, one that more closely aligns with her interests. Not the jerk. You're not excluding her because she's a mom. You're excluding her because she makes being a mom everyone else's problem. She won't leave the baby home. Does it have a father present, grandparents, anyone who can watch it for a few hours? She expects you to cater to her needs. You shouldn't have to not drink just because she can't. It sounds like she doesn't remove the baby from the situation when it's fussy, so you all have to deal with it. You have every right to want to be young and act like it. She needs to accept that having a baby has changed things for her, but that doesn't mean everyone else has to change everything to accommodate that. My fiance is reconsidering our marriage after visiting my home country. To start, I come from a small island in the Caribbean, part of the US. I moved to the US 5 years ago just after graduating university and landed a job here. Since day one, my fiance has been romanticizing what it's like to live in a tropical paradise, my country. I love my country and I was raised there, but it's not even close to a paradise. Of course it has its charm, but not close to that level. Well, we were planning our honeymoon and she wants to stay there for 2 weeks and travel around the island. I'm not fond of that idea because I've seen it all and she wants to visit not safe areas around the island. Her main part of attraction is a place that's in a huge music video, but it's not a safe place for tourists. So I said, fine, let's just do a quick visit before our wedding so we can see what's going on. She immediately accepted, and 1 month later we traveled to my home country. She wasn't impressed, but I kept my mouth shut. We arrived at this place, and I already know today that it's a hot day to be there. I tried to convince her, but she insists on going in. The locals are eyeing us, and my mind is screaming we shouldn't be there. Not even 3 feet in, and 2 guys confronted us. She started talking, and her broken Spanish just made things even worse. I tried to calm down the situation, and we left soon after. I kept my mouth shut, even though I just wanted to tell her, I told you so, because this was stupid from the start. On our way back home, she didn't say a word, even after I tried to start a conversation. Well, today, 1 week after we arrived, she left her ring at the nightstand with a note telling me she needs some time. I fear this might be the end of it all. She never does this sort of thing. Update: she called off the engagement. I don't know what to do now. Probably just drink while I play some Halo with the boys before crying myself to sleep. See ya. Let her go. It looks like she was in love with the romanticized idea of having the potential to live in a tropical island. Then her idea busted. If she was really loving you, this experience would not affect the personal relationship with you. I'm 32, male. My girlfriend, who's 31, doesn't want me as her wedding date. Backstory: my girlfriend and I went out for the first time about 10 months ago. I hadn't realized then, but she had just gotten out of a long and serious relationship basically without any warning. She was shocked, hurting, confused, and I think just looking for a fun casual time. I suppose we hit it off way better than expected and started seeing each other pretty consistently. She was clear she wasn't ready to jump into anything too quickly, but soon enough we were essentially boyfriend-girlfriend. Going out 1 to 2 times a week, texting every single day, and as far as I know, not seeing other people. Around the holidays, I met her family, and although we really hit it off, I think it freaked her out a bit. She continued to text daily, but barely. She didn't want to come over and made excuses to not go out. After a month, we saw each other finally, and things went back to the way they were. In May, a similar thing happened, and we actually stopped talking for a week. After that week, she reached out, we talked and went out. While out to dinner, she and I both acknowledged how hard it was to not talk to each other, how we felt, and she asked me for us to be official. I felt the same way and was elated to say yes. Since being official, she met my family. I've spent some more time with hers. We did 2 mini trips together, and I even joined her family vacation for a few days. The family loves me, and her little sister is getting married in about a month. It's my impression that the sister and her fiance, who also loves me, wanted me at the wedding, and basically said things to me assuming I was going. I know it can be a pain to invite guests later in the game, so it really means a lot. The issue is that my girlfriend hasn't invited me, and has basically told me she doesn't really know if she wants me there. My girlfriend is the maid of honor, and she and her sister are absolute best friends. I guess she feels like, with it not only being her sister, but also her best friend, there's a lot of pressure on her and us about having me there. She doesn't want the pictures and memories for the rest of her life to feature one guy she was dating at the time. By the time of the wedding, we'll have basically been seeing each other for a year, though maybe only made it official for 4 to 5 months. I don't feel like I'm just some guy and can't help but feel offended. I know this probably has to do with her last relationship ending abruptly and without warning. I think she's still learning how to trust again, but at the same time, it feels like she's telling me we aren't fully going to make it, and if she chooses to not have me there, it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I've tried to ask a little about it a few times, but she honestly gets so worked up and stressed out when it comes to this wedding that I don't want to mention it to her anymore. At this point, I haven't been officially told anything either way, invited or not. At what point should a significant other be invited as a date? Update. The responses from everyone seem to be pretty split down the middle. Half of you saw this as a huge red flag and suggested I end everything, while the other half thought it was okay and the best thing I could do for my girlfriend was to just support her. Being that everything else in our relationship seemed to be going so well, I wasn't going to end things over this. My next decision was to also not approach the subject again. She had gotten so stressed out the last time that I didn't see how bringing it up again could help the situation. If she was still teetering on what to do, I wanted to let her make the decision on her own, not sway her based on what I wanted. People suggested I find a way to enjoy the weekend on my own or with friends. Well, what do you know? There's a big barbecue festival in the city my friend lives in. Everyone knows the best way to distract a man with swirling thoughts is through meat. Well, yesterday that all changed because she asked me to go as her date. She apologized for being so late about it, but she described going through what a lot of you had written. She's helping a lot with this wedding and is under an enormous amount of stress. She wasn't sure about bringing me out of fear that it would be another thing she would have on her mind. Where she wants all her focus on is her sister. She says the way I've been supporting her lately made her realize she won't need to worry about me. Yes, I probably won't even get to talk to her until dinner. No, I won't know too many people since all of her family I'm close with will be in the wedding parties. However, I'm important to her and she wants me there with her regardless. She apologized for the last conversation, making it sound like I was just some guy that she was worried about having in pictures. She argued jokingly that it wasn't exactly how she said it, but neither of us can remember the exact verbiage anyway. She was also really appreciative that I haven't been pressuring or nagging her about this and let her come to her own decision. The fact that I gave her space on the subject, yet continued to support her, was what made her realize how much she wanted me there. I miss my annoying wife. I've been married to my wife for over 4 years now. From the point we were dating until 3 months ago, she was very annoying. She would prank me by scaring me. She would put her cold hands and feet on my shirt while we were laying down. She would scream my name in a very panicked way just to follow with, "I love you." She would take the cap out of my tires just so I wouldn't have air in them and couldn't use the car, just on the weekends when I didn't need… Man, she was annoying, wasn't she? Dang. So it wouldn't be a problem, but it was annoying. She would make me a small cup of coffee with salt in it, and the list goes on and on. But I didn't mind because I loved her so much. 3 months ago, things took a turn. She lost her mom unexpectedly and is understandably very sad. Her mom was such a sweet woman who raised my wife alone since her father left when he found out he would be a father. She was a model to my wife, her hero. She taught my wife how to be a woman. She taught her how to love. She helped my wife through her heartbreak. She was overall my wife's most important person in her life. After the loss of her mother, my wife is the most calm woman I've ever known. She doesn't do anything annoying anymore. She doesn't make my salted coffee anymore. She doesn't scream my name anymore. She doesn't scare me anymore. She doesn't let the air out of my tires anymore. And I miss it very much. It was very annoying, but at least I knew she was happy. She had the most beautiful smile, and now it's gone. She isn't even crying anymore. She just lays in bed and cuddles with me like most of the day. She doesn't smile anymore, and I miss her being happy. I miss her smile after I would drink her salted cup of coffee, which I of course knew it was coffee with salt, but it was such a small price for seeing her smile. I just miss my annoying wife. Update. I want to explain to you my relationship with my wife's mother. Me and her were friendly. I respected her as a mother figure to my wife and a somewhat mother figure to me, but she didn't really like me. She was friendly to me, never had an argument with her. It wasn't something personal with me, but she didn't really like my presence. I think it had to do with the fact that she didn't trust men anymore because of my wife's father. But although she didn't like me, she respected me as her daughter's partner and accepted me and even gave me good advice in life. Now update with my wife. She's way better now. Still not her full self, but she started being a bit annoying again. After some of your advice, I decided to wait a bit to prank her until I thought she was ready for a prank. After like 1 month, one morning I woke up before her, got out of bed, went to her side of the bed, and started kissing her cheek while waiting for her to wake up. When she woke up, she looked at me a bit confused and asked what I was doing. Well, I started kissing her more, and then I yelled, "I love you!" Her reaction was very odd. She was giggling the whole time I was kissing her, and after I yelled, she said she loves me too. I then told her I'm going to make some coffee for both of us, and you guessed it, I salted her coffee. She again reacted very well and spit it out and started laughing hysterically. In my opinion, that made her a bit better, but she was understandably still very sad. But her first prank was unexpected and very funny. After another month of me doing little pranks on her, she took revenge. I don't know what she got, but it was some type of chocolate cake that when you poke it with a knife, it explodes. I didn't know what the occasion for cake was, but hey, it was cake, so I didn't suspect anything, and so I tried cutting it up and it exploded. My wife was of course laughing very hard, and I just got the rest of the cake that was on the table and put it in her face, so we were both covered in chocolate cake. We were laughing so hard, we both fell on the floor, and after a few minutes, we started hugging each other on the floor and stayed like that for half an hour. Now she's still very sad, but she started being annoying again. But the biggest surprise is that she's pregnant with a girl. Yes, she's going to be a mother and I'm going to be a father. We're both so excited and we already know what the name of our precious daughter will be. My wife asked me, a bit scared, if we can name our daughter her mother's name. And I of course said yes, because firstly, it's my wife's most important person name, and secondly, it's a very pretty name. My wife demands I sacrifice my hobbies just so I can babysit. My wife, Jane, who's 34, and I, male 38, have been together for 5 years now. She also brought my stepdaughter, Emily, who's 9, into our marriage. We have her 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, while she stays at her dad for the other days. From the beginning, Jane told me Emily doesn't need a second father figure as she already has her dad to fill that role. I was only supposed to be a trusted authority figure in case she ever needed anything else. I didn't mind, and I try my best to respect that boundary. She's a sweet kid anyway and doesn't cause trouble, so it's not like I have to discipline her. Her father is also a good guy. Emily's dad recently got married, and his wife has 2 kids of her own who are at their place Wednesday to Saturday and at their dad's Sunday to Tuesday. Emily and her new step-siblings don't get along very well at all. They're always fighting and it's pretty toxic. Emily's dad asked Jane if they can change their custody schedule to match his stepkids to keep the kids apart. It's not a big deal in and of itself because we don't live far from each other, so picking and dropping off is no issue, as she can easily be dropped off at school no matter where she stays. The issue is my wife agreed to it without consulting me. Jane is currently doing a certification course for the next 12 months, and they have classes on Saturday from 9 to 5 p.m. She asked me if I can babysit Emily on Saturdays, but I can't because I play golf with my brother and sister on Saturday mornings from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. This has been our tradition from before Jane and Emily came into my life, and I had always told Jane how important this was to me and my siblings. She asked if I can move to another day, but that's not possible either because my siblings also have jobs and families of their own, so Saturday was the best day for us. I told her she can hire a babysitter, but she doesn't want to spend money when I can do it for free. I told her that wouldn't work for me. She then got mad and said golf is stupid and I should put my stepdaughter above my siblings. That really upset me, so I told her I'm not going to sacrifice my hobbies just so that she can have a free babysitter. For the record, I don't have anything against Emily. I've babysat for her before and she's a good kid. If there was a family emergency or if it was an occasional thing, then yeah, I would cancel golf for that day to take care of her. But I can't give up something this important to me for 12 months continuous. She called me a selfish jerk and slept on the couch last night. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It sounds like this is something that should have been worked out more carefully as a family before agreeing to it. Is it possible that the dad or stepmom changed their kid's schedule as well? That way they have her when Jane is busy with certification courses. Info. Is there a kids class or something like that where you go golfing? Could help integrate the two if a schedule change is not possible. OP. There isn't, and even if there were, it would likely still have to be paid for. My wife doesn't want money to be spent to take care of Emily. She just wants me to do it for free. Not the jerk. I was ready to read this and read you for filth, but this is truly a jerk move from your wife. I think it's totally fair that she asks you to help out, but agreeing to it without talking to you and assuming you'd consistently do it is wild. Why did she agree and then work to loop you in after? It's also interesting that now that your wife needs your help, Emily is your stepdaughter, where it seemed like there was a clear boundary that you aren't her father figure. If your wife wants to revisit what your role is to Emily, totally cool, but it shouldn't be because she needs a babysitter. Not the jerk. Your wife can't say her daughter doesn't need you as a stepfather, but then expect you to step up as a stepfather every single Saturday when she needs you. She can hire a babysitter. Dad and stepmom also need to step it up and work on the relationship between the new step-siblings and get that under control, because there are going to be times where they are all together in the same house. That's just life. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. The things some people put up with for love. Am I the jerk for telling my parents that they were horrible and saying they shouldn't have any more kids? I, 16 male, was born when my parents were very young. Like my mom was 16 and my dad was 17. Both families decided it would be the best for me if effectively my maternal grandparents raised me and my biological parents got to live their lives. That is not to say I didn't know who my actual parents were. This is not one of those situations like in movies where the mother pretends the daughter's kid is actually her own. I and everyone knew who my actual parents were. My father moved away when he was 18, but my mother remained in my grandparents' house until she was 23 and I was around 7, but that doesn't mean that we were close. She always treated me more like an annoying little brother rather than a son. She didn't like spending time with me, never attended any of my school functions or showed interest in my academic work or took me to any fun activities. Whenever I was talking about my day, she would roll her eyes or change the topic to shut me up. When she moved out, I barely saw her. She just came to family gatherings and said an awkward hi and not even looked at me. It hurt, even if by that point I already considered my grandparents to be more of my parents than her. My father was still living away. They weren't together at this point, but would come once or twice a year to visit his own family around the holidays, and always made it a point to visit me and take me to do some sort of fun activities, like going to the movies or my favorite restaurant, things like that. But to me, he was more like a stranger than a dad, because when I compared him to my friends' fathers who picked them up from school every day and went to their games and played with them on the weekends, I didn't understand why this man who I saw maybe twice a year was supposed to be the same. Anyway, fast forward to a year ago. My father moved back to the same city where we live. He tried to hang out with me more often, but I wasn't really interested, although sometimes I complied. I don't hate him, I just don't know him. I even had a bedroom in his apartment, which is cool because he lives in the center of the city. Behind everyone's back, both my parents had started hanging out, and a couple of months later, they announced they were dating. It was a shock. They asked me to move in with them to my father's apartment, which I refused, but they argued that we could finally be a family. I was about to start an argument on them when my grandma just said that changing school districts would be very inconvenient and I could lose all my friends, and the situation de-escalated by itself, although my parents didn't let go of the idea. My parents asked for me to spend more time with them, and this was particularly frustrating because even though I never had any particular tension with my father, I most definitely do with my mother. I don't like being around her, and she's treated me poorly my whole life, and I feel like she's now only trying to save face because she knows my dad wants me there. Now on to the issue. Last week, they both came into my grandparents' house. They announced they were going to buy a house nearby in the neighborhood so that I can finally move in with them. I immediately said no, and when they said that changing schools would no longer be an issue, I found myself in a corner, and I said that was never the problem, and that I just simply don't see them as my parents and don't want to live with them. That's when they dropped the bomb on us. Not only did they want me to move in with them so we could finally be a family, but my mother was pregnant, so we were going to be a bigger family even. I was shocked, and I blew my lid on them. I told them they were the worst parents in the world, and that they left me for 16 years, and now they were going to bring another kid into the world and do the same to them? And they never apologized for treating me like garbage and like a mistake they made and making me feel like I wasn't supposed to exist and dumping me to be other people's responsibility, and only now that they feel like they care that they actually want to be a family. My mother screamed back at me, telling me I was a brat and that she wasn't going to make the same mistakes twice raising her second baby. And I told her she never raised me to begin with, and my father said they were young and trying to do the best they could. Well, I guess the best you could do was still pretty bad. I stormed out and went to my room sobbing. I've been very depressed for the last week. They both called and texted, but I ignored them. My grandparents agree with me that I shouldn't move and that my parents shouldn't expect me to be all loving and forgiving after how they've treated me. However, they believe they are starting a new chapter of their lives now that they're more mature and stable, which I guess leaves me behind. I've also had time to think that I'm the same age as my mother was when she had me, and what a huge responsibility that must have been. However, I still can't forgive them. Am I the jerk for the way I reacted to the news? I've come to the conclusion that I have a lot of resentment and unanswered questions as well as misgivings about the future that I need to set straight with primarily my father. He needs to know how I grew up, and I need to know why he left me. I also feel like I need to warn him about my mother because I'm worried about my sibling being left and treated like I was. So I'm preparing a list of points and questions that I want to bring up to him, and we'll meet tomorrow or the day after. and I'll confront him with all of these to hopefully get some sort of closure or resolution. Update. First of all, I shared my post with my grandparents, and they were so surprised by it. They were all very happy to see how many people commented about how amazing they are. Also, they took the opportunity to tell me how much they loved me, and I told them the same thing. They are my real parents, and nothing is ever going to change that. There were some tears, and they told me they loved me and how proud of me they were. They never thought of themselves of doing something special or worth so much appreciation. They were just taking care of me the best they could. After that, I started trying to collect my thoughts and arranging a meeting with my father to discuss the things that were bothering me. Why did he leave me? Why did he think he could just reappear into my life like that? That I wasn't going to move in with them, and I didn't consider them my parents because they never acted as such, etc. We met at the park, and he went to hug me, but I stepped away, and he looked hurt, and he just apologized for what happened the other day, and went into this speech about how we could try to transition into living together part-time and respect my boundaries, and I went blank. I didn't expect for him to talk, so I pulled out my phone and just showed him the post I made the other day, and he started reading it in silence. After a while, he read it all and some of the responses, and he just asked me if this was true, and I said yes, and he told me if I had questions, he would answer honestly. I asked what happened when I was born, and he told me that when my mother got pregnant, all options were laid on the table. Not having me, adoption, marriage, Gramps taking care of me, only one of my parents taking me in. My mother was deadly scared of adoption, so he proposed taking me in as sole caretaker and leaving his college plans to stay in our city, but his parents weren't thrilled with that plan and pushed him to go to college so that he could provide economically for me. They offered themselves to take care of me, but they were significantly older than my maternal grandparents. She was an only child. At the time, they were just 40, whereas my father has 5 older siblings and his parents were already in their 60s. And since taking care of me meant taking care of my mother for a while as well, my maternal grandparents decided it was the best decision for them to take me in. Also, intermediately after I was born, my mother had postnatal depression. One thing to note about my father that I didn't mention in my original post is that even when he was in college, he worked part-time to pay child support, and once he started working in a law firm, he started sending more money to my grandparents and set up a college fund for me, which was news for me. My grandparents don't know about this, but my mother does, so I don't know what to do with this information. My father thought of me all the time he spent away and believed he had left me with a happy family and that he was working to give me a better life, but I followed his life through social media. He went to parties, vacations, had girlfriends, and did lots of fun stuff and barely had any contact with me. I asked him why couldn't he have made more of an effort to be a part of my life. Like, I understand if he needed to study in another city and work there, but it's no effort to call or text. Coming once a year just doesn't cut it. He looked ashamed and apologized to me, and I took advice that I saw in a lot of comments here that I would forgive but not forget, and that maybe we can build a relationship going forward. But it will always be marked by his actions in the past. If he hasn't been my dad for 16 years, he can't start now. He seemed sad but accepted my conditions. I told him about my concerns about my mother, told him how she had treated me growing up, that I did not think she would be a good mother for my sibling, and that I wanted to go low or no contact with her. He said that after he left for college and they broke up, he would call her once in a while to check up on things, but that quickly ended, and when he came back, she explained to him that her and I had a great bond, and even though we didn't see each other daily, it was because I was in those teenage years, and that she loved spending time with me and had been a very hands-on mom. I told him that everything she had said was a lie, and that she never cared for me. He obviously read the stuff from my post, but I also told him other things, like when she would ask my grandparents for babysitting money, for taking care of me, or that she would call me annoying or disgusting. He was very serious and said he would talk to her, but that he really would not allow a kid to be treated like that, and said that he was sorry for letting that happen to me. Lastly, he told me he would have a bedroom in his house, but he understood perfectly that I would never live there. He was quite emotional at this point and got choked up at this point when he asked me if, even if I didn't consider him my father, I would consider his baby my sibling. I said of course, and that I planned to be a very active part of their life. He started crying and asked if he could hug me, and this time I agreed. I'm happy about the resolution of our conversation, and I really do believe he will be a good parent for my sibling. Update. So a lot of you warned me about crap hitting the fan when my biological mother talked with my dad, and today that's exactly what happened. My father sent me a text early in the morning warning me about the fact that he was going to confront my mom and that he didn't want anything to splash to me, and reassured me that he believed me completely, and I braced myself because I expected for her to call me going off on me or something. I truly don't care about what she thinks about me, but these past few days have been emotionally draining, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for another full-blown confrontation. After a few hours, my mother pulled into our house and let herself in, screaming at me, saying that I had ruined her relationship, and asking me why I had been blabbing about private matters that don't concern anybody. I said that my childhood matters to me and my father, who is also going to be the future father of her kid, and that her actions ruined the relationship. She called me a jerk and said that I was the biggest mistake she's ever made in her life. I didn't know she could still hurt me, but that was a low blow. And I said that I would do anything in my power to take her baby away from her because she was a monster of a mother. We were screaming at this point, and my grandparents, who were in the backyard, must have heard us and entered the room and separated us and heard part of the fight. I was fighting tears, and my grandma walked me upstairs to my room as my grandpa screamed at my mom, "How dare she speak to me that way?" My grandma soothed me a bit and then went to confront my mother with my grandpa. I heard from the door how they ripped her a new one. They confronted her for telling me the things that she did, for treating me like garbage all my life, and for lying to my father. They told her how disappointed they were in her for always treating me with disgust and how many excuses they made for her, thinking she was a kid trying to raise a kid, but she was now an adult and her behavior continued the same, and they said they were on the path of disinheriting her. My mother was screaming about how hard it had been for her and how much she hurt, but my grandparents were having none of it. They raised me, and she was allowed to have the life she wanted and to take all the decisions she wanted without repercussions ever. And I even heard them say that if there was any custody battle ensued over the baby to come, they would take the father's side unless she drastically changed everything about her behavior. They went outside for a while, so I don't know what they said, but eventually they came into my room and my grandparents looked extremely serious, and my mother was red and crying and apologized to me through gritted teeth. I didn't respond, but my grandparents said on her behalf that she was going to start therapy immediately and she was no longer welcome in the house. I called my father after this and he was furious. He talked to my mother before going to a work meeting and confronted her about everything. Apparently it was nasty, but he was willing to work on the relationship for the good of the baby, on the condition that my mother would also be working on improving her relationship with me so that whenever I visited them, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable. After he left, he made her promise she wouldn't contact me until they talked again. But there's my mother for you folks. I asked him to think on what's better for himself and the baby and to not hold today against my mother if he doesn't want to. Also, a thing has come up a lot in the comments of my previous post is that my parents only want me as a babysitter and that I should steer away from them and the baby for my own sake. But I want to make a point about that. I can't say anything about their intentions. I know nothing about that, but I am really excited to have a sibling. Growing up, I had a very small family. It was just my grandparents and me. On my paternal side, I had a huge family with aunts, uncles, and cousins, but whenever I went there, I always felt like the odd one out. They tried to include me and invited me for Easter, Christmas, barbecues, and stuff like that. But I really didn't know them, and although they were nice to me, I always felt like I had a big sign on my head that said, "That kid John had in high school." I can't wait to have a sibling and love them and always be there for them and show them what a family is. I want to be the person that they can always rely on, and I want to feel that bond with someone. So even if I have my misgivings about my parents, and I do a lot, I do not about being a big brother. Am I wrong for not agreeing to be a stay-at-home wife when I retire? I'm retiring in about 3.5 months, and my husband and I disagree on how the division of labor should be once that happens. Since meeting my now husband, I've been very vocal about my plans to retire when I turn 40. I've planned my life around this goal, lived below my means ever since college, and gave up things to meet this goal. We got married in our early 30s, so it's only been 7 years since then. He also saves for retirement. I finally got him to up his amount to 20%, but he won't be able to retire until at least 62. He's instead chosen to spend his money on things that make him happy, and I fully support and encourage him in that. Everyone has different goals in life. We're both child-free by choice, so that isn't a factor here. I've said in the past that I'm not going to be doing all of the cooking, cleaning, and finances once I retire because I don't want to replace one job with another. I currently do all of the cooking, most of the finances, and probably 25% of the cleaning. I think that it's fair, as my husband usually works more hours than I do, and I'm a picky eater, so it just works out the best. He recently made a casual comment about how he's going to start working more overtime once I retire because he'll have less household stuff to do. So I asked him what he meant by that, since my retirement doesn't really change anything for him. and that I preferred he didn't work more overtime so we could spend time together still. He said that most husbands with stay-at-home wives don't clean the house. I didn't know what to say because I thought we had already discussed this, so I tried my best to change the subject. But we had an argument about it yesterday at dinner, and he's now giving me the silent treatment. I slept in the guest room last night as he locked our bedroom door and wouldn't let me in. I just don't know how to get through to him. Even though I'll no longer be working, I won't be a stay-at-home wife by my own definition. To me, a stay-at-home partner is the manager of the home and doesn't bring in much, if any, income. Their job is to take care of the house. I'm not trading one job for another. I'm retiring. I'm still bringing in income. I've just planned my life so I no longer have to work 9 to 5 to do so. I have multiple hobbies that I have been super excited about devoting more time to. I love rock hounding, crocheting, and hiking. I'm an unpublished writer and have always dreamed of becoming published. I have a lifestyle blog and a pretty active Pinterest following. I'm not super consistent and they're not big enough to monetize, so I count them as hobbies, not side jobs. I also have a very long travel bucket list. I've already started looking into nonprofits in my area I could volunteer for. I know I still have limited hours in a day, but even if I only volunteer 1 day a week, I still feel like I could be helping our local community. I know we've had conversations about this, and he's always been supportive, even of me leaving for a few weeks every so often to solo travel. He's always been excited for me. I'm totally confused about this change, and I'm freaking out. I thought I communicated my expectations, but he's saying that he doesn't even remember talking about it, and that he's not okay with me retiring if I'm just going to be lazy. I don't see it that way. Am I wrong? How are you currently splitting expenses? We split expenses proportionally based on income. I pay 70% of expenses, and that will continue once I retire. More about husband. To be fair to my husband, this post is all about an argument we're having. I didn't put in my post all the great things about him and all the other things that we agree on. I struggle with depression and anxiety, and he's the only partner I've had that has helped my mental health rather than hurt it. He's usually very understanding, kind, and reassuring. The things that make me good at money management make me bad at enjoying life. I'm very serious and I can be a realist, but he's an outgoing, fun guy who has taught me to live in the moment and relax. The reason I thought to post here is because this argument is not normal for us, and his attitude and behavior caught me off guard. He does pull his weight. All the jobs he does are the ones I'm literally physically unable to do, or ones that I hate and he doesn't mind. So I very much enjoy our arrangement. Locking you out was not okay. I'll definitely address what happened last night. Locking me out is one of the main things about what happened that concerned me enough to ask for outside opinions. But from reading the comments, I think I may have been too quick to shut him down instead of coming up with a compromise or figuring out why he was changing his mind on the topic. When was the last time you discussed your early retirement with him? I went on a weekend backpacking trip about 5 months ago, and when I got back, I made a comment about how I can't wait to be able to hike more often. We ended talking about my travel plans for the next few years. Because I do all of the cooking, that was brought up as well. He wanted me to make all of his meals ahead of time before I leave, but we ended up agreeing that I would stock the fridge and he would either cook for himself or get takeout. If he retired, he wouldn't do more work either. I know this because it was hard enough getting him to agree to do the chores he does now. Because I do the cooking, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, most of the finances, grocery shopping, kitchen cleanups, cleaning, all kinds of stuff. I also manage the repairs. We live in my dream house, but because it's old, it needs a lot of care. My husband wanted a newer home, so I agreed to take on all of that. I also manage the carriage house that we rent out. If I did any more of the chores, I wouldn't have time for anything else. He does landscaping, cleans bathrooms, takes care of his turtles, cleans windows and blinds, and takes care of his laundry and other communal laundry, towels, sheets, etc. I think it's fair as we both do most of the chores over the weekend, obviously except daily chores, and we both have free time. Update. So he came home very late that night after ignoring his phone. We didn't end up talking about it, and I slept in the guest room again. He works from home Tuesday and Thursday, so the next day he was home when I got off of work. I spent the day gathering my thoughts and preparing to have a calm discussion. I tried to remain calm, but he was so defensive and accusatory that I was getting very frustrated. We weren't very productive, and we ended our talk with him denying that I pay 70% of the expenses even though we planned this out and budget together based on it. I told him I'd go through our expenses to prove it, and being the person that I am, I did so the next day. This is where the problem starts. When I was going through our expenses, I found a charge on my husband's credit card from 2 weeks ago that I didn't recognize. It was not a significant amount, so I originally looked into it just to see if it was a household or personal expense to use in my calculations. It turned out to be a bill paid to a law office. For very obvious reasons, I wanted to know more information on why he was being billed by a law office. I looked up the office, and it was a divorce attorney specializing in property division. I logged into his email. I have proof he has given me permission to access his email at any time to go over expenses, and I found his conversations with said lawyer. He was trying to find a way to overturn our prenup so he gets half instead of what's agreed upon in our prenup, and wanted to try and get alimony as well. I had no idea he wasn't happy until we started arguing on Saturday. That morning, he woke me up with breakfast in bed, a total surprise since it wasn't a special day and he almost never cooks. 2 weeks ago, we had a Star Wars movie marathon and ran around the house in a lightsaber battle. Last month, he communicated that he felt like we weren't spending as much time together as we normally do, so I planned more date nights. He's gotten me flowers at least once a week for months now. I just didn't understand why he wanted to divorce, without even trying to express what he was feeling to me. When I went all the way back to the very first emails, late July, a woman we'll call Ashley was brought up. I tried to think of a way to confirm my suspicions without him suspecting that I knew what he's been up to. On Saturdays, we sometimes get takeout, so I purposely left my phone upstairs and asked him if I could use his to order the food, and I was taking too long to figure out what I wanted, so he went downstairs to finish what he was doing, giving me more time. It was hard to wait that long without letting on what I knew, but from Thursday to Saturday, I began to get a plan in place. I spoke with a divorce attorney and scheduled my consultation and made sure I had any legal and financial documents I need. On Saturday, when I went through his phone, I found Instagram messages between him and Ashley. By going through the messages and looking at her account, I figured out a lot about her. She seems to be a nice girl he met on Tinder back in May. She's 27 and married to her high school sweetheart who can't bring in enough income for her to be a stay-at-home wife. Considering my husband works in tech, and by looking at his messages, lied about how much he makes, he's obviously the better option. He's lied to her about wanting to have kids and has told her that it's the reason he's unhappy in our marriage. I don't know what he's thinking she's going to do when she finds out that he had a vasectomy. Ashley is apparently willing to do all of the duties that I'm not. From cross-checking dates, when he's supposed to be hanging out with his friends or at a work thing, he's actually with her. He has a weird work schedule, so she sometimes comes over to our house on the days that he works from home and I'm in the office. She's convinced that after they both go through their respective divorces, that they'll live in the house together, get married, and have kids. He's just gone along with everything she says. He's told her that I'm lazy and hardly make any money, and that I wanted to quit my job and not do any work, which is why he's finally gotten the courage to leave me. He said that he's taking extra care in the divorce because he doesn't want to leave me with nothing. He's also told her I changed my mind about having kids and that I'm denying him his desire to continue his lineage. Now you may be thinking, are you stupid? How did you not know? The answer is, I had no idea, and I must be dumb as he played me for a fool. I'm trying to put some humor in this for my own sake, but I'm sobbing as I write this. I just got back from my new attorney's office with a lot of forms to fill out, and I'm so overwhelmed and still feel confused for some reason. Like this must just be a really bad dream. I reached out to Ashley's husband, so they're probably heading towards divorce as well. He seems like a nice enough guy, also totally blindsided by the affair. I told my husband I was divorcing him last night and told him he could either sleep in one of the guest rooms or get a hotel room. He chose the latter. So that's my update. Our prenup has a 99% chance of holding up in court, but we also have an infidelity clause that I'm hoping to prove so I can keep 100% of the house. I was willing to put my dream house in the infidelity clause because I knew I would never cheat. He was fine with it at the time as well, but is now blowing up my phone about it. If I can't prove his affair, which is unlikely considering the evidence I have, I would have to pay him about 25% of our equity in the house, which is enough for a down payment on another house, so he wants me to not bring his affair into our divorce, which is weird to me since he had no qualms with bringing the affair into our marriage. Did he text you about not bringing up the affair in the divorce? Because that's evidence. Yeah, I never said he was the smartest. In the texts, he's saying to not bring up Ashley, doesn't mention an affair, and that she shouldn't be involved in our divorce, that we should keep things to ourselves, etc. But I sent myself screenshots of the messages from his phone that prove infidelity. About his lineage line, the funny thing is that he just made it up. He got a vasectomy before we even met and is even more staunchly child-free than I am. About Ashley, I'm pretty sure she'll find out the lies from her husband since I told him everything. I'm now hoping her husband will get a big promotion suddenly or something where he's finally making enough money for her, but now that they're divorced, she'll just be stuck with my husband or left finding someone else. I wonder how long he's been doing this. OP, I know they met on Tinder back in May, but I don't know if he's ever done anything else like this before. Since it's very likely I'll be able to prove infidelity in court, I don't necessarily need to know if he's had other affairs, but I hope he'll tell me the truth if I ask. Maybe he will if I ask him after the divorce is settled, so it wouldn't hurt him at all. It turns out Ashley is staying at the same hotel as my husband. Go figure. Make my life difficult for nearly a decade? I'll make you look like an idiot. When I first left home to go to university, my parents co-signed a mortgage for me on an apartment-style condominium in a small Canadian city. This was 20 years ago, so it came in at a whopping $52,000. They thought that this was a much better and economical choice than trying to find an apartment and deal with landlords. I loved the idea and moved into my new home. The building was almost entirely populated by the 65-plus crowd. It was small and only had 24 units split into two halves. I had a basement condo. It was a nice place, nothing fancy, but amazing for a student. I was young, 19, but I was quiet, kept to myself, and didn't do the whole party thing. I got along with most of my neighbors. I'd help them out moving heavy things or carrying groceries upstairs. I was acutely aware of the age gap and the general image of a university student, so I made sure to be just an all-around great guy to avoid conflict. The one person I could never see eye to eye with was my upstairs neighbor. For a 70-year-old woman, she couldn't have weighed more than 100 pounds, but she walked like an elephant. She'd have gospel music on her TV at max volume at 5 a.m. on Sundays. She'd make remarks about, "that darn kid," whenever something was left out of place. She even went so far as to accusing me of breaking into her car and making a police statement saying she saw me do it. Unfortunately for her, I was out of the country on an internship at the time, but still, she persisted being a pain in my side. I tried to approach her about the TV issue, and her response was to make sure that it was no longer just Sunday. After a couple of years of attempted diplomacy, it was clear that nothing I did would make things better. Others in the building probably knew she had it out for me, but why would this adorable little old lady try to lie and get me thrown out of the building by the condo board? She tried at least 11 times while I lived there. 7 years into my time living there, I was at my job with an ambulance service just north of the city. I got called to a shooting. It happened over a neighbor's land dispute. The neighbor survived, but there was of course going to be a police investigation. The investigating officers called me to get a statement and offered to just come over to do it, rather than have me travel. One of them was a constable I'd worked with quite a bit, so I said sure. We set a time for about an hour after I'd get home from work. I was just getting out of the shower when they buzzed to get in the building. I said, "Come in, I'll be out in a second." I hit the door buzzer and quickly grabbed some pants and a shirt. I heard them come in and then walk upstairs. As I'm trying to throw on some clothes, I hear them knock on my upstairs neighbor's door. They introduced themselves as being from the RCMP Major Crimes Division and that they were looking for me. She says, "Oh, he lives downstairs. What do you want with him?" They thanked her and informed her that they couldn't say as it was an active investigation. My heart sank, but then I had an idea. It only took about 15 minutes to do my statement and they went on their way, and then the fun began. I knew the rumor mill would be starting. She would tell everyone that would listen that Major Crimes was looking for me and that I must be some sort of criminal. I decided to see where this went. Pretty soon, I'm getting side-eyed in the hallway. Neighbors are steering clear of me, so I know she's been talking. Turns out, I've been arrested for all kinds of crimes and I must be out on bail according to her. I found this out when one of my neighbors, who was on the condo board, showed up with a letter demanding an explanation and threats to have me kicked out. I asked him what this was all about, and he said, "Well, Linda sent us a letter about what happened, and we had to have an emergency board meeting because people don't feel safe with you here." I said that per the bylaws of the condo board, before any action could be taken, I could request a meeting to review and provide a defense. Linda was on the board, so I knew that she'd be there. They set a date for a week from then, but I was given a caution that it didn't look good for me and that I would have to do a lot of explaining. The meeting day comes. Linda is sitting smugly looking at me. The other board members are giving me dirty looks. The board president asks what I have to say in my defense. I stand and quietly distribute a letter on RCMP letterhead signed by the regional superintendent that says, Mr. Zen Medic is not under suspicion of any crimes, past or current, and has not been arrested, detained, or questioned as a suspect in any criminal matter. His duties as a paramedic will often require him to make statements in regards to ongoing investigations, and in this instance, on this date, investigators had gone to obtain a statement about an ongoing investigation for which he was professionally involved. At no time did the members discuss, disclose, or in any way indicate that they had any involvement in any wrongdoings. I am deeply saddened by the necessity of this letter, and we will be reopening an investigation into a previous incident regarding false statements made against him. You could tell when people read and understood it. The dirty look shifted from me to Linda. She exclaimed that it must be forgery. She witnessed me being led off in handcuffs. She pleaded that they should believe her. It didn't help. I stood and addressed the board and outlined the years of mistreatment from her, including the false accusations of breaking and entering her vehicle. I informed the board that on advice of my lawyer that I do not discuss the matter further with any member of the board, as Linda being part of it and using her position for the purpose of harassment opened the board as a whole to litigation, and I was still weighing my options. The next day I had a knock on my door. The board president had informed me that Linda was removed from the board and that she was given a warning about her conduct, and that any further harassment would result in proceedings to have her removed from the building. She also had a visit from police with a summons for providing a false statement and obstructing a peace officer. She had to attend court. She pled guilty to both and was given a suspended sentence and 1-year condition not to harass, threaten, or intentionally inconvenience me in any way. If she abided her conditions, she would receive an absolute discharge, meaning it would be removed from her record, like it never happened. I moved to another province before her year was up, but for a brief period of time, I actually got to sleep in on Sunday mornings. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.